same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
With job numbers near historic lows, Forbes magazine has released a list of tips for finding a job, all of which involve witnessing an employer murder someone. Forbes says despite the grim economy, employers are still hungry for talented workers who know how important it is to forget about whatever they think they saw or heard.
So me and a couple of friends were out smoking at the Viaduct the other day, and we saw this really rich guy in a Mercedes pull up in his car and drop nothing. Now I'm the Vice President of International Development.
According to Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein, we had a great quarter and hired hundreds of new employees. I haven't done anything wrong, and all my employees will tell you the same thing because that's the deal we had. But the article warns that stumbling onto a coke-fueled CEO strangling a prostitute isn't a foolproof method for finding work because employers are just as likely to murder you as they are to hire you.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and as always, you can join us here. The number, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
Whoever you are.
And Chris.
Oh, hey, Chris.
Am I on?
You are on.
Oh, it must be my headphones.
Yeah. We can turn you up on that here. Hang on a second. That'll help.
I thought you'd forgotten.
No, I thought it was off.
You should be better now.
Muted. Yeah.
Better now?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, cool. So open phones as always. I actually want to pick up a topic from last night. We're going to get into some interesting tech news that you've got about an internet service provider that's been ordered to block certain types of services, and we'll get into that in a little while. But there was a story that we were discussing last night, Nobody, about Dr. Carl Hart. Now, this is the author of the new book, Drug Use for Grown-Ups. We had started a story. Normally, we don't carry over from one night to the next the same topic, but I thought this was such an interesting interview and an interesting perspective that I did want to share that with. I wanted to share more of this with our audience. So just to bring you up to speed, Dr. Carl Hart, he's a professor. And I believe it's Columbia University. Yeah, Columbia University. He's a neuroscientist. He's done studies involving why it is that people use drugs. What is it that drives people to do them? And he's got a lot of experience in this particular field, which is why he wrote a book about it recently. And again, the book just published, Drug Use for Grown-Ups: Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. This interview is over at Vox.com, written by Sean Illing. We read the first couple of questions last night, but we started it kind of toward the end of the show.
I mean, isn't this obvious? It makes you happy, right? It makes you feel good.
Well, yeah, but some people believe that the drugs themselves are like addictive, and really the reality of it, according to Carl Hart, as I understand his perspective, is that it's these people that have really bad lives. They really hate their lives and they want to escape from them. And that's ultimately what drives them to use these things. So, but there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misunderstanding in the world of drugs, and people looking at it from the outside that don't really know, what they're looking at. And so I wanted to share some of his answers to these questions in this interview.
I would like to add, it's not necessarily people with objectively bad lives, but each one of us has a different body chemistry. Mm-hmm. And some of us, like major depressives, are pre-programmed just not to be happy. So even if their life is looking good from the outside.
They can't see it.
They may be in a lot of pain on the inside. You
For
never
whatever
know
reason.
what battle
You know-
somebody else is fighting.
You know what's funny is I can see this from the other side. I'm always happy. Like, I mean, that's probably an exaggeration, but like I'm always happy compared to certain other people in my life.
You might be a
And-
sociopath, actually, if you're always happy.
Well, I
That's
mean,
not a good
it's-
sign.
Maybe not. I didn't say always, but almost always happy. And it's like even when things should kind of make you down, like bring you down, I'm usually not that down. It's like, oh, there's been one or two occasions in my life where I've been like depressed, but it's like
You can make an effort to be more positive. You can make an effort to, see things, look on the bright side.
Yeah.
And some people don't make that effort, or they don't believe that they can, or they believe that there's a chemical imbalance in their bodies, and that they've been told this story their whole lives about that, and they've come to believe it. So I think a lot of it is your mindset, and how you approach things.
I think that's true as well. And one of the interesting things, because I don't necessarily believe the same things about alcoholism that I believed when I was going to AA, but what I do know is that it worked very well for a lot of people. It didn't work for everybody.
AA did?
AA did. And so, I've been trying to think about what did AA have that worked, as opposed to, the garnish that was just there on the plate, but it wasn't good for anything. I think the big thing that AA does is it provides you with a circle of humans who, might have better judgment than your parents in a lot of cases. If you came from a messed up home, they might well be able to straighten out some misconceptions you've got about life. And also, they're relentlessly positive and relentlessly positive about you and wanting you to succeed.
That can be infectious, right?
Yes.
If the old rule that the people you associate with, the people you hang out with, will either bring you up or bring you down. If you hang out with a bunch of sad, depressed, poor people all the time, don't be surprised if you start going in that direction. If you hang out with people who are constantly positive, whether they be wealthy or not, you're going to have a more positive outlook.
And this is kind of like why people, they change their environment, like when things aren't going well, right? And it doesn't matter whether it's you lost your job or you're in a not such a great situation because your partner is, I don't know, abusing you or whatever it is. You get up, you move, or maybe you got out of jail. You don't move back to where where you were living before. You move somewhere else. And
but the problem is wherever you go, there you are. And so a lot of the people who move, they think that's going to solve all their problems.
It won't. But it can be a start, right? It can be a start.
It can be, but
especially when other people are dragging you down.
But the thing is, you have to see it as a start and to change your habits, because if you move somewhere and you don't change anything about what you believe, or
right, it has to come from you. It can't come from somebody else telling you to do that.
The only thing that the move gives you is it puts you in a new setting.
Correct.
Where you don't have the hangover, like, you don't have a bunch of people who have a bad impression of you because of your previous life.
And
that's
important.
What moving can give you.
But
that's important.
If you
to get off
just
the
move
ground.
and don't change your behavior, then you're right. You'll end up right back where you
will
were.
recreate all the old bad, it'll be a different set of relationships. It'll be a different set of people, but you'll attract to you all the bad types of people you had around you before.
What's kind of interesting is even if you have it well, that can still be a good thing, changing pace and changing your life around, because you can change it. Even if your life is good, you can still change it for the better potentially.
For sure.
You could always, move to New Hampshire.
I did. That's exactly what I did. Right.
That's
and
what
I
we
didn't
all
have it
did.
that bad maybe the government, I had it bad in terms of government, but I didn't have it that bad in New Jersey.
Did
in terms
you just
of
celebrate 5 years?
I did. Yeah, actually. Yeah.
Congratulations.
March. Yep.
That's awesome. Oh, this
Well,
you're going to.
yeah, I'm sorry. Not yet, but March 12th, 2016.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So coming up in less than a month then. Congratulations.
Oh, and you know who else has a birthday coming up?
No.
2 years, 2 weeks to flatten the curve has a birthday coming up.
How's that going? So let's get back into this interview, because I think it's a really interesting discussion. Carl Hart, again, he is a neuroscientist, I think it was. Yeah, neuroscientist and professor of psychology at Columbia University. So this is the interview at Vox.com, where he is being interviewed by Sean Illing, and Sean says, Let's see. You wrote this book for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that you're very unhappy with the way we talk about drugs and addiction in this country. Actually, I'm sorry. We read this one last night. Here's the next one. So let's talk about what you consider the confusion around drugs. People often, and I've done this in my own reporting, draw distinctions between different drugs. We'll put drugs like heroin or meth in one box, and we'll put something like psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, and other psychedelics in another box. And
you've got to keep them in different boxes. If you get them all mixed up, you're going to have a bad time.
He says the conventional wisdom is that the latter class of drugs are safer, and that is less addictive, and therefore fundamentally different from the former class of drugs. Now, you say this is a BS move, and there's no evidence to justify it. Can you explain why? So Carl Hart says, when some people take psilocybin, they're seeking to alter their consciousness some way for some purpose. Typically, the users of psilocybin are middle class or higher, they're well educated, and their use of the English language is more sophisticated than the typical heroin user. And what you'll often hear from psychedelic enthusiasts is a lot of lofty talk about seeking higher planes of consciousness or religious transcendence or whatever. But here's the thing. A person doing heroin is often doing the exact same thing. They just don't have the same language to describe it. But ultimately, it's all about the pursuit of happiness, of pleasure, of greater well-being. Now, the folks who are advocating for psychedelics know how the American psyche thinks about heroin and crack, so they've worked really hard to separate themselves and these drugs from those people and those drugs, because the image that is conjured up in your mind about the average heroin user is not desirable. And we saw Mark doing this last night on the show.
He's right about image, but there are fundamental differences between different drugs and the effect that they have on people. Otherwise, we'd only have one drug.
Well, that much is true, but he's talking about the reasons why people use them and how good they are at communicating that. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Want to accept Bitcoin at your online store? There's a good chance you already have what you need: a WordPress using WooCommerce and a Bitcoin address. Now all you need to start taking Bitcoin payments on your website is the AnyPay app on your Android or iPhone. Just paste your Bitcoin address into AnyPay, then connect it to your website with our one-click plugin for WordPress. Now your website takes Bitcoin, start to finish in 15 minutes or less with no complicated steps. Download AnyPay from the App Store today.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Having taken her father's throne, Sarah Calhoun has fallen out with one of her best allies, and her brother Nathaniel heads into Imperial Philadelphia with a reckless plan. Her uncle Thomas, armed with new powers and new allies, aims to remove Sarah from her throne and from the world of the living. To survive, and to gain the strength she needs to fight an impossible war, Sarah must unite the Mound Builder Kings to enact an ancient rite that will propel her beyond mortality. Servant Daughter by DJ Butler is the newest entry in the Dragon Award-winning Witchy War series from Baen Books at baenbooks.com.
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you're invited if you want to join us here. We're talking about drugs and misunderstandings, misconceptions surrounding their use and abuse, because those two are not the same thing. 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Nobody, and Chris in the studio here tonight. Also, Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. So if you're ready to get into the world of cryptocurrency, get started over at Bitcoin.com. Just hit the Get Started button there at the top of the page, and you'll be presented with a series of videos that you can watch. And if you only have time for the first one, then that's a good place to start. And it only takes a few minutes. So go to Bitcoin.com to do that and click Get Started. Also at Bitcoin.com, they've got the news site over at news.bitcoin.com that will give you the latest news headlines in the world of cryptocurrency. So again, that's news.bitcoin.com. We're going to get back into the interview with Dr. Carl Hart. He's a neuroscientist, he's a professor, and he's also a drug user, and he admits it. And part of the reason he's doing that is to demystify the drug use, to make it so people who believe that drug users are all a bunch of strung out losers are countered, that misinformation, the mythology of that is being countered. And I think that's an important thing to have professionals come out and admit their preferences when it comes to altering their states of consciousness. So we'll continue with the interview with him here in just a moment. But first, let's go to the phones to your calls and thoughts. Scott is on the line. Scott the Bigot in Florida. You're on Free Talk Live.
Good evening, Ian, Nobody, and Chris. I need your help tonight and your listeners' help tonight. I got big trouble. Trouble came to my door. I went to my mailbox yesterday, and I got to admit, I was expecting it. I got a letter from the IRS, and this is what it says. We recently contacted you about your past due 2019 taxes. You must pay your balance immediately. You must pay by March 11th, 2021 to stop further penalties and interest. Now listen to this sentence. If you don't act now, the IRS may consider levying, seizing your income or bank account. So I have trouble. I spoke to my money manager, and this was his words. I really don't want to pay these bastards. But this is what my money manager said. He said, Scott, if you don't pay it, they're gonna like water at a tap. They're gonna shut off your credit. You won't be able to use an ATM, go to Publix, buy groceries. You'll end up living like a wino under a bridge. So if you were in my shoes, Ian, I need your advice. I hate the U.S. government, especially the IRS. What recommendation could you give me to handle these bastards? How would you handle it?
Well, I'll give you an answer to that. Basically, if you're in bad straits with the IRS and with the banking system, basically with Wall Street, then what you want to do is you want to make your living under the table. Then they can't garnish it. You want to pay someone you know to rent a place in cash, or arrange to form a corporation, buy a house, and lease it to yourself without anybody knowing that you own that corporation.
There's ways
there
to
are
make you
all
self-judgment
sorts of things you can do, and being around people who are willing to play it fast and loose is a big help.
What kind of money are we talking about here?
Well, you asked me, so I'll be frank with you. The amount past due is $369,749.42.
Good Lord.
Okay, so you mentioned you've got
you make a pretty good living, I'm inferring from that.
Yeah.
It's
And
just
it hurts
really,
me.
really
It's
old
like
debt.
amputating a hand or a leg. It's very painful.
Yeah,
Especially the government that I hate.
Right. Look, I think that you and I, we've got different beliefs, and we disagree on a lot of stuff. But as far as your own personal finances are concerned and your own personal freedom, I think that everybody deserves freedom. So I think that what I would suggest here is, I also agree with nobody, is that if you want to be off of their radar, you're going to have to, get as much of your assets off of their radar as possible. You mentioned you have like a financial manager of some sort. This person handles your investments.
I work with them. Yeah.
Okay.
And
what
do you do?
I made some money on some stocks, and I invested well. But let me ask you a fast question. Does the IRS, can they literally knock on your door and just put you in handcuffs?
I can't give you legal advice. I don't know what they can and can't do.
That's a lawyer question, man.
Yeah, I can't give you legal advice. I would suggest that you hire an attorney, number one. But number two, if you want them to not be able to touch your assets, then you're going to have to get them out of your name. And so... I don't know how much you have invested in stocks or whatever, and I don't know how easy they can go. Is it as easy for them to garnish stocks as it is for them to take money out of a bank account? I'm going to guess it's probably almost as easy for them, but I don't know. I know that if the IRS shows up at your bank with a letter, the bank's just going to hand it all over.
I think it depends on whether you actually bought the stock OTC or whether you have... whether you bought it through a brokerage account, because if it's through a brokerage account, they're probably holding it for you, and they will.
Yeah, but can't they just go to the brokerage account for?
They would be the brokerage would be just as happy as the bank to hand it over.
That's why what I would suggest here is, if you really are wanting to change how if you're willing to change how you sort of approach things in your life with your money, then nobody's suggestion here is a pretty good one. And I'm surprised you didn't suggest to him, nobody, that he might want to consider converting whatever dollar level assets he has into cryptocurrencies.
That would definitely be part of it.
Yeah.
You got to get your assets off the books, but you can't be obviously doing that. It's a good idea not to obviously be...
it's time to take a boating trip.
Well,
yeah.
Well, whether it's obvious or not, I don't think really matters at this point. He's already into them for, according to them, over $300,000. So if he just goes and buys a bunch of cryptocurrency and then loses it in a boating trip, well, then there's nothing that, can be done about that.
They can try and throw you in jail still.
They can certainly try to throw you in jail.
Question. I want you to reiterate that story you discussed a few weeks ago. I thought about it last night, really, 2 a.m. I was thinking about what you said. There was a restaurant owner that he didn't pay his money, and the government just went and wiped out his account. Is that what
you're thinking of the gym owners? There were a couple of gym owners in the Attilis Gym in Belmar, New Jersey. They had their bank account cleaned out of about $165,000 or $170,000. Basically, every dollar they had to their name, everything they'd raised in their fundraisers, all gone. And it was in that case the state of New Jersey that actually did the stealing, not the IRS. So it can also be the state.
I owe money also to Massachusetts, gentlemen, and I don't want to pay them either. But my broker team told me if you don't pay the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, they have the authority, like the federal government. They can just come and garnish whatever you want. So it seems I'm screwed.
They cannot garnish your cryptocurrency unless you hold your cryptocurrency with a central authority like Coinbase.
You know what I would probably do if I was in your position? I would probably, I would figure out how much do you owe versus how much you actually have in terms of, worth, and then invest that money in businesses, small businesses, because it's going to be a heck of a lot harder for them to seize a small business that's going to go under if they were to try and seize it from you and just get a contract.
People don't have to know where you're investing.
Right, exactly. And then they don't know where you invested it too.
Yeah,
I want to just say one thing. I don't look at this as tax money. I look at this as extortion.
Oh, absolutely. And it's going to do things like bombing peaceful people in the Middle East. By the way, there's more bombing going on.
Carl Wattner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Wattner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
The easiest thing in the world for a reader to do is to stop reading, according to the late, great Barney Kilgore, who became managing editor of the Wall Street Journal in 1941 and grew the paper's circulation from 33,000 to 1 million by the 60s. And he'd be pleased to know that his paper is one of the few that people now pay to read online. Someone else pre-internet who realized that attention is fragile? Motown Records founder Berry Gordy. In the early 60s, when his label dominated the charts, he'd bring a dozen real people into the Hitsville, USA studios and audition songs. And he'd ask, if you were down to your last dollar, would you spend it on this record or would you buy a sandwich? Today, attention span seems like an oxymoron. For tips on cutting through the clutter, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
is Free Talk Live, and the phone number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Whether you want to talk about protecting your assets from confiscation by criminal enterprises, like the IRS, the federal government, state governments, or you want to comment on drug legalization or the ending of prohibition, just kind of trying to defeat some of the mythology, the bad information out there about drugs and drug users. We're going to do all those things here tonight. And you can, of course, join us as well. With you in the studio, you've got Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
So did you guys have any further comments regarding what Scott the Bigot had brought up? Because, regardless of his bigoted views, he's on the right side on the issue of not wanting to pay a criminal enterprise known as the federal government. We were talking about cryptocurrency as an option. Chris, you were talking about as investments in businesses.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you need to keep it out of things that the IRS knows about and
can just snatch.
But also the other issue is that the IRS is going to start, and they're probably going to investigate deeper if they realize that you've taken out all this money from stocks. They're going to be like, well, where is it? What happened to it, right? So you might have an issue. Now, maybe if you, buy some gold, some percentage of it, the rest of it can disappear, right? Because you got to give them something, right? So that might be one way to do it. But if they raid your house and you have paperwork on the businesses and contracts, well, then they're going to know that you have those businesses and contracts, and you could end up in trouble. But on the other hand, if they find gold and that's it, well, the rest of the money could have just gone, disappeared because you spent it.
Not being where they expect to find you is also a good option in that case.
Yeah, I mean, you probably want to try and avoid any kind of paper trails that would give them evidence to use against you in a court of law. Because at the end of the day, there's a line that you're going to cross that's going to become criminal, and then there's the line where they don't actually have any evidence that you've done anything knowingly or otherwise necessarily.
And I don't think failure to pay can actually become criminal.
If you've intentionally not paid them, it can be criminal.
Really? I didn't think it.
Yeah.
Isn't that why they put Larkin Rose in jail?
I don't know. I know
remember.
that they charged Edna Lane Brown with tax fraud.
Yeah, it's probably going to be something like tax fraud if you don't pay them.
Well, the thing is, failure to pay is not the same as fraud.
Right. Failure to pay is not a crime if you didn't intentionally do it. But if you intentionally didn't pay the tax and it wasn't like a tax avoidance thing, because tax avoidance is legal. Or tax minimization. That's not illegal. It's if you intentionally tell the IRS you made no money and you actually did make money.
Yeah, and
that would be fraud probably.
I think that's the problem that Edna Lane Brown got into, is they sent in a form with nothing but zeros on it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't.
Wesley Snipes did the same thing.
And then signed it, which is under penalty of perjury.
Right, that's when it becomes fraud, because fraud has to have a
felony
lie.
if it's a perjury.
Yeah.
If you pay your taxes and you sign something and you just don't pay the right amount, but you didn't knowingly not report it, that's not a criminal offense as I understand it legally, but I'm not a lawyer, so get your own legal advice.
Well, usually the language is to the best of your ability or to the best of your understanding.
And that's why it's not a crime. It doesn't mean you won't have to pay it back. You'll still have to pay it back. But it's not a crime.
Well, the one thing that Scott definitely doesn't have going for him is the fact that he hates so many people. So if he was hoping to actually find a support network of people who are willing to help rent a house to him or something like that, he only likes white Protestant men. So that's going to narrow down the number of options that he has as far as being willing to find somebody who's willing to rent him a cash house or something like that. So maybe he should reconsider being a bigot, and that would actually open up his range of opportunities.
Or at least
maybe he needs to walk the earth like Kwai Chang Caine and find ways to put rest to his demons.
Find some peace.
The crazy thing is, you don't have to stop being a bigot. You just have to stop being a bigot openly to other people.
Well, you should stop being a bigot.
I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you don't even have to stop being a bigot. You just have to stop, running your mouth.
So back to the drugs story from Vox.com, interviewing Carl Hart, the neuroscientist and psychology professor over at Columbia University, the author of the new book for drug use for grown-ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. So the interviewer asks him, most people don't get addicted to drugs, probably far fewer than most of us realize, but it's still true that lots of people do get addicted, right? Do you think that's just something we should accept as the price of a free society? I mean, your own research suggests that 10 to 30% of people who use drugs become addicted. Even if we take the low end of that estimate, it's not insignificant. Carl Hart says something like 40,000 Americans die every year in car accidents, and that's been true for 30 years or so. Nobody's talking about banning cars. Instead, what we do is we try to implement safety procedures or safeguards such that we decrease the likelihood of that happening. We put in speed limits, we make people wear seatbelts, etc. We do our best to make it as safe as possible. Why would we behave any differently when it comes to drugs? Does anyone even ask if drugs are uniquely more dangerous than, say, driving a car? Because the evidence is that they're not. And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, and the government doesn't just fail to go out of its way to make things safer for drug users, which I don't think they should do.
I agree.
But they go out of their way to make things more dangerous.
That's right.
And that they could stop doing.
Well, the entire war on drugs makes them more dangerous.
Exactly. The war on drugs is, I mean, I would be shocked if without the war on drugs, if 10% of the number of people who die now died.
I agree. In fact, it would be interesting to look at Portugal and see, because I know that the numbers went down. The number of drug-addicted people in Portugal went down almost immediately after they had decriminalization of personal amounts of drugs. So I suspect that continued to go down and stay down.
Yeah, and the nice thing about his theory is... the theory that he's operating under is it actually explains things like Portugal, whereas the old theory under which the drug war was conceived, the assumptions under which they operated were that what happened in Portugal would not happen.
You know what I would say about this issue is I can accept other people being addicted. However, I won't accept myself being addicted. And basically the lesson here is if you're addicted, take responsibility for yourself and wean yourself off of the drug. Go and seek help.
Indeed. And if it were decriminalized or legal, not prohibited, then more people would go and seek help. And that's what we saw happening in Portugal. But Carl Hart continues. He says, I'm not saying that people are not going to get in trouble. Anything worth doing in life is not without risks. I don't want anyone telling me what risks I can take and what risks I can't, so long as I'm not hurting other people. It's really that simple. And he comes back to that a lot, the not hurting other people. So I wonder if this guy would describe himself as libertarian. Sean Illing says, just looking at the data we have, it seems driving a car is less dangerous than using opioids, since way more people drive cars than use opioids, and still thousands more die from opioids. Carl Hart responds by saying, I don't know how you came to that conclusion, given that neither you nor I know how many people die from opioids. Knowing that a person that had an opioid in their body at the time of their death doesn't tell you that the opioid caused the death. Kind of like with COVID, where we're seeing a bunch of deaths, quote unquote, associated with COVID, but it doesn't necessarily mean they died of COVID. This is particularly relevant, says Carl Hart, in the light of the fact that the majority of drug overdose victims have multiple drugs in their system. In addition, a substantial proportion of these individuals ingested tainted drugs, because again, black markets lead to drugs that aren't what they advertise themselves to be.
Yep.
The point is, he says, we still have a responsibility to try to enhance the safety of these activities. Banning an activity merely pushes it into the shadows, where the risks will undoubtedly increase. The number, if you want to join us and comment on drug use and abuse, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Dr. Carl Hart, the author of this new book that sounds like it would be very good, Drug Use for Grown-Ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. We got more coming up. Your calls and thoughts, welcome. Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
What's the difference between a stoplight and a school bus?
A stoplight is a light, and a school bus is a school bus.
Full of children.
Right. So
That's a good
the light
lad.
doesn't have any kids in it.
That's what you call a derelict, educated derelict.
Yeah,
You gotta come out of Harvard.
I'm really not a derelict. I work for a living.
You are an educated derelict. Well,
Barbara,
you know what?
I agree with
Have
you.
fun, play your game.
No.
You're a
Because I'll tell you
fornicator,
what,
Mark.
When
Barbara.
you pass that next red light, I sure hope they get you good. And I
Barbara,
hope you don't kill anybody.
I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, she hung up on you, Mark.
But I agree with you, Barbara. I was telling you that I agree with you except for the stoplight thing.
Children, Mark, there's children around. At every red light, you could possibly kill someone.
This, by the way, gentlemen.
If you would run a red light at 3 in the morning when there's no traffic as far as the eye can see, then you would just as soon run over a school bus and kill all the kids inside.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Open phones if you want to join us here. You don't have to call about drug use and abuse, the mythology of it. We're deconstructing some of that stuff here tonight with the help of an interview with Dr. Carl Hart, the author of the new book, Drug Use for Grown-Ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. And we'll continue with that here in just a moment. We're reading an interview from Vox.com. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
And don't forget, you can join us online over at freetalklive.com. We've got a chat system. It's called Matrix. It is a open source, self-hosted chat server, and we've been running one now for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months, something like that. It's been a good chunk of time, and it's going very well. In fact, our main chat room on there, the On Air Now room's got over 175 people who have joined that room. Now, whether they're all in there at one time or not is another question, but it seems like it's active almost all the time, almost 24 hours a day. You're going to find people in there. So check out chat.freetalklive.com. There are step-by-step instructions there on how to get involved in that chat server, and there's multiple rooms in which you can interact with other people. You can even create your own rooms and administer them completely, public or private. It is up to you. So hop on over to chat.freetalklive.com to learn more.
I'm waiting for somebody to set up a floating poker game in one of those rooms.
Okay. I don't know how you do that in text chat, but I guess you could.
You do it with the bot.
Oh, poker. Now, is there a bot that somebody's written for that, or not yet?
I don't know, but
Okay.
it would be a good bot. I have asked the bot master to
Nice.
write a wallet.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. We'll have
So
to
we
talk
can
about
start
that
tipping each other
another time. So, yeah, it'd be great to have a tip bot for the, you mean specifically for the Matrix?
Actually, for Telegram at first, but the same 90% of the work would be done then in terms of adding the ability to talk to the Matrix would be pretty easy after doing
That'd
that.
be sweet. So check it out at chat.freetalklive.com. We're talking about, again, drug use here, and Carl Hart, the doctor, the author of Drug Use for Grownups, is being interviewed by Sean Illing over at Vox.com. Illing writes, I'm thinking about this in the context of the opioid crisis, which you say has been covered terribly by most media outlets. Actually, before I say more, can you tell me why you object so strongly to the way the opioid story has been covered? Carl Hart says, it's a fact that Americans have lost their lives as a result of opioids. But when you look at the numbers, you start to realize that the likelihood of dying from the use of opioids alone is extremely low. So,
especially if you don't choose to do them.
Indeed. So why are people dying? They're dying because they're often taking multiple drugs. They're mixing opioids with other sedatives, which is incredibly dangerous. So the cause of death isn't opioids in these cases, but that's how it often gets reported. The focus is on...
I got to quibble with them there in that from what I've seen, it's mostly people who got fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
Or people who, ironically enough, people who quit for a while and then went back to it.
Now,
that's the other thing. Like, people will get out of prison and die of an overdose right away because, just like, I'll get myself stoned into unconsciousness sometimes when I'm just intending to put a little buzz on because I used to smoke so much that now the amount that it takes to be enjoyable for me is much less than I expect it to be.
So is prison weed less dangerous than weed on the outside?
Weed is not dangerous in any way, shape, or form unless a bale of it falls on your head. Well,
you get the idea.
I mean, danger. There's different kinds of danger. I would say in prison you're probably likely to get lower quality, and more likely because of the way it comes in to catch a nasty disease off using a needle that's been in somebody's suitcase.
Now, when you say fentanyl is what these heroin users have gotten, are they getting heroin that's laced with fentanyl, or are they just getting straight fentanyl? What is happening there?
Well, what was happening is there were dealers who could get fentanyl cheaply, so they were diluting the fentanyl, and they were thinking that was going to prevent people from dying when they took it because, the dosage of fentanyl is physically much smaller. The problem is that different drugs affect different people different ways. So there's no number that you can say this amount of fentanyl is equivalent to this amount of heroin for everybody. Each person is going to have different reactions, and especially if you're taking multiples of what people normally take, the action of drugs does not necessarily grow linearly.
But here's the thing. You're citing stories of people that you've heard of personally, right? You're citing just case studies, essentially. Carl Hart is saying when you look at the numbers on a wider perspective, you're going to find a lot of these people who they're chalking up as dying from opioids are doing other drugs at the same time. So they may be mixing opioids with other things, like he says here, antihistamines or alcohol or various other drugs. And these are not good combinations. So, you know, I presume he's looked at these numbers. He says when you look at the numbers, but he doesn't cite. He's just in an interview here. So this isn't actually his book. I'm guessing that if you actually look at the book, he probably has the citations to to back this up. But it wouldn't surprise me because a lot of the drug users I've known, they don't just stick to one drug.
That's generally true, although heroin addicts very rarely do anything else.
Well, that's what he's saying they do.
Because
he's saying they do.
They'll drink alcohol if they don't have heroin, but generally, I don't know. There are people who are cross addicted, like they do heroin and
that's what he's saying.
And
It seems
cocaine.
there's a lot of those people are the ones that are dying.
So
that could be. Certainly, a speedball is a very dangerous thing.
I thought with the fentanyl, the problem was that it was highly concentrated, which is why they're cutting it with other
That's what
drugs.
he said, yeah.
And the reason they're doing this is because it's cheap to get fentanyl because it's so concentrated, it's easier to transport, basically.
But that problem has actually gone down a great deal because now people are just asking for fentanyl. And when they know what they're getting, it's not a problem.
He actually addresses fentanyl in the next paragraph. So he says, and another reason people are dying is because they're getting tainted drugs. This is probably the primary reason they're dying now from something like fentanyl, which is an extremely potent synthetic opioid used in legal settings to treat severe pain. But we could solve that problem so easily, just like they did in Spain, Austria, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Just have drug checking services that will allow people to understand the composition of their drug. All they have to do is submit anonymously small samples of their drugs, and they get a printout of what's contained in that substance and some education about each of the agents in that substance. That would take care of so much of this thing that we're calling a problem. I get parents who email me all the time.
And the ability to sue. The ability to sue all the way up the supply chain.
Well, you can't have that unless it's legal.
Difference. Exactly.
Yeah. Legalization is the key thing to cutting the problem.
And
down,
if it were legal, you wouldn't have altered substances.
It's not even about testing. It's about legalization because once it's legal, you don't even have to worry about these problems.
No, you don't have to test your aspirin.
Right.
You don't have
and you can hold your whole supply chain accountable because
absolutely
every industry has mistakes in the supply chain. But only in the illegal industries can you not sue.
He says, I get parents who email me all the time after their kid has died, and they want to know about the toxicology. And I look at the reports in these cases that are classified as quote-unquote opioid deaths, and what I see time and again is various drugs in the system, some of which may be tainted, but the parents are told it's an opioid death. And look, it's horrible, just horrible, but the issue isn't opioids, it's tainted substances and mixing drugs and using drugs recklessly. And as you pointed out, ending prohibition, whether it's legalization or just ending prohibition, would solve 95% of these problems. And it would solve them within 3 weeks.
It's probably way higher than that.
Because, you can get heroin for $13 a gram. And
on the black market?
On the dark web.
Mm-hmm.
And, that would hold a junkie for a long time, a gram. That would be like, 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
So
they can afford that with a job at McDonald's.
The thing is, a lot of times the reason that that addicts specifically will have strange drugs in their systems is they won't be able to get what they usually like, so they'll just take something random out of their mom's medicine cabinet, and then they score what they really wanted, and they've got these weird chemicals in their body, So I think he is pretty much right on that.
We're going to get into it further here. There's some more questions for Carl Hart. He's the doctor that wrote the book, Drug Use for Grown-Ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. And, of course, you're welcome to weigh in here. Maybe you've got personal experience with drug use and you want to talk about the reality of it. You can join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Hour 2 is next. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
Look, I'm sorry, but you're in for a world of pain if you use Coinomi. The reason is their wallet doesn't support payments. The solution is simple. Let them hear your voice. Message Coinomi on Twitter, it takes 5 seconds, and tell them AnyPay sent you, because they're on the fence right now, and your voice will prove that people care about using Bitcoin for payments. Go tweet at Coinomi now. Or even better, leave a review in the App Store. They really pay attention there. Thanks.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
A step closer to another vaccine. I'm Rich Dennison, Fox News. An advisory panel today voting to recommend the FDA grant emergency use authorization to Johnson & Johnson's coronavirus vaccine candidate.
The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is single dose and does not need to be frozen. The company has said if they get emergency use authorization from the FDA, they will have 20 million doses available by the end of March.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. The State Department announcing sanctions after an intelligence report indicates the Saudi crown prince was actively involved in the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Turkey.
A Khashoggi ban is in place for 76 Saudi individuals. Visa restrictions on those believed directly engaged in serious extraterritorial counter-dissident activities. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says it's a sign the U.S. will not tolerate individuals who threaten or assault activists, dissidents, and journalists on behalf of foreign governments. The ban comes amid a declassified intelligence assessment that Saudi Arabia's crown prince approved an operation in Turkey to capture or kill Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018.
Fox's Jarrett Halpern. The House is set to vote later tonight on President Biden's nearly $2 trillion coronavirus relief package. Democrats say they have the votes for passage without Republican support. Conversations about the future of the Republican Party are occurring at the Conservative Political Action Conference.
Depending on who you ask, there could be a rift between establishment Republicans and the fired-up conservatives here at CPAC this weekend.
We're coming for them.
Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz says the party's future is still Trump and not the likes of Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
What does it tell you? That if the number 3 Republican in the House of Representatives showed up, she'd get booed off that stage behind me. And everyone here knows it, and she knows it.
Cheney is not attending this year.
Fox's Eben Brown in Orlando. America is listening to Fox News.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but here you go. You deserve to feel better than you do today. And you can with Headspace. They make meditation simple. Headspace is the one of the only meditation apps advancing the field of mindfulness and meditation through clinically validated research and can reduce stress, improve sleep, boost focus, and increase your overall sense of well-being. Go to headspace.com/Fox for a free 1-month trial. This is the best deal offered right now. Headspace.com/Fox.
Officials with the Pentagon say yesterday's U.S. airstrike in eastern Syria should send a message to Iran.
A senior U.S. military official says the airstrike is a shot across the bow and warning to Iran. U.S. Air Force F-15 jet fighters dropped 7 laser-guided 500-pound bombs. Iran's proxy forces used the compound to funnel weapons and fighters across the border to Iraq. Officials accused Iran's militias of launching rockets at U.S. troops in Iraq 3 times this month. No Americans were killed. 1 U.S. service member suffered a concussion. Officials say it's up to Iran to make the next move. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
A 33-year-old Italian man was convicted today of attempted extortion for threatening to blow up a British National Health Service hospital unless he was paid off with the U.S. equivalent of just over $13 million in cryptocurrency. The man was sentenced to 3 years in prison. It appears last month's economic stimulus payments increased incomes and led to increased spending.
Both consumer incomes and spending rose last month. Incomes were up 10% and spending rose by 2.4%. It's the first increase in spending in 3 months. Americans were expected to make more money in January and spend at least some of it after receiving stimulus payments. The federal government has also been paying workers $300 a week on top of their unemployment benefits. The trend appears to set up the economy for recovery this year.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
All experts agreed this week that the dying U.S. economy is no reason at all to stop investing in print media, calling the newspaper and magazine industry a veritable cash cow with massive potential for growth. Top experts everywhere said that aggressive investment in print media will pay off in spades, and that newsprint is in no way threatened by internet news sites or online video content. Besides, everyone in the know agreed, loyal readers of newspapers would never, ever in a million years turn their back on the trusted print media industry that has always been there for them in good times and bad.
This is the Onion News Network.
It's the Onion Radio News. I'm Doyle Redland. Cardiologists announced today that test subjects who took a single aspirin tablet followed by a fifth of bonded Kentucky bourbon were 85% less likely to realize they were having a heart attack. Potential side effects for the new treatment include slurred speech, impaired vision, and vomiting. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything that you want here. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're going to continue with more on drug use and abuse. Again, not the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the points that Dr. Carl Hart has made. And we've certainly made that point many times over the years. And
we have, but, you know, it's occurred to me since we started reading this article how often we've talked about phrases like harm reduction. Mm-hmm. Now, harm reduction has an interesting, basically the implication to saying harm reduction is no good can come of these things. So we're just going to make them do as little harm as possible. But the built-in assumption that primarily they will do harm is still embedded in that thought.
I agree with you. That's definitely not. I don't think maybe that wasn't the intention in the people that created the terminology. But what would you suggest is better?
Utility maximization would be the term, and it's a common term from both in economics and from artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. You look to get the best possible results that you can out of whatever is in your own personal pharmacopoeia.
Yep.
And I was talking on break about I did the experiment of smoking crack for 6 months until I was good and
all cracked up.
I was a crackhead. I was a bona fide crackhead. I even jacked a little crack off a sleeping hooker, which is.
I have to say, what other show could you possibly listen to
None.
and hear stuff like this?
Well, nobody tells the truth. Is the thing.
I mean, we're talking about evading IRS and crack. We got a
Crack
crackhead
addiction,
in the
yeah.
office. I mean, it's like, or in the studio here.
Retired.
Retired. Sorry, retired.
He voluntarily chose to put it down and move back to Keene.
Yeah.
Well,
and the thing is, the reason that I did that for the listening audience, if I already said this to you guys, is I wanted to find out how to get out of an addiction using LSD. And in order to find my way out, I had to find my way in. So I'm probably the only person I know who's ever intentionally gotten himself addicted to drugs.
And did the LSD help?
It did, and it helped, and it showed me because what LSD does, we were talking about how a change of scene can
Physical
be good.
scene. Physical.
A change of physical scene can be beneficial, while a change of mental scene can also be beneficial because people have these patterns in their life that are playing out and they're not really aware of it. Yeah. And they're always looking at life from the same perspective, so they never see what they're doing. Right. What LSD does is it turns up the gain on your pattern matcher. So you see patterns where you ordinarily wouldn't see patterns. That's why drugs like LSD can make you paranoid, because paranoia is just seizing on something that looks like it's a connection, but it's not really a connection. It's coincidental. So you've got the gain turned up too high. Well, of course, even paranoids have enemies. I always thought it would be hilarious to like bug a psychiatrist's office and find a paranoid patient and like break into his house and rearrange the furniture and then listen over the bug to his shrink explaining to him that it's all in his head. It's not really happening.
Terrible.
I would only do that to like an ex-politician or something.
I want to go to these phone calls here. We got Dave on the line. He's in New Hampshire. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live. This is Dave Ridley from RidleyReport.com.
No, nobody really does tell the truth.
Nobody tells the truth.
Oh, yeah, he definitely does, and you know it.
When I cut my commercial under the words "nobody tells the truth," there's going to be video of me on the stand at my violation of probation trial saying, "I smoke marijuana every single day."
Well, what was it? Well, that's not scandalous. But what was it? Orwell said, "Autobiography is only to be trusted if it reveals something scandalous."
Well, it's true. I mean, everybody's got skeletons in their closet. I just put some clothes on and make them presentable.
So what were you calling about, Dave?
So Free Talk Live has helped me recover missing cryptocurrency.
What? Really?
You did it just by being
that.
there. So what happened was I called you, about a week ago about this, but I had sent some Binance coin to Binance, right? And it disappeared. And I couldn't get customer support for, about 6 days. I started getting more and more upset. It was on the blockchain, but it wasn't showing up in my account. And I couldn't get anyone to answer me or figure out what was going on. So eventually I emailed their PR department and told them I was going to be contacting you. I was going to be just, mentioning it on the air, and, a large number of people would hear about what was going on. And
on the show that introduced.
Yeah.
So one of their PR people got back to me immediately, escalated the thing, apologized, and I immediately got a obsequious apology from Binance customer support. They said they're behind. They didn't. There's stuff they could have done, automated that would have explained what was going on and how long to wait and whatnot. But they didn't. They hadn't done that. But once they got back to me, they were really nice and helpful and quick, and they showed me what to do, and I got it all back. And I think you guys have played a key role in that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
And
if I had,
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
I think Binance, too, I think kind of proved itself a little bit by their handling of it. At least there was two ways to contact them. They explained to me what happened. And part of it was my mistake. Binance Coin is a little bit complicated and hard to understand sometimes. And so you have to put a specific memo with certain transactions, and that wasn't really clear on Binance. So I had put the wrong memo in, apparently.
Oh, okay.
And yeah.
And so you're saying they're way behind. By the way, the Binance coin is right now the number 4 cryptocurrency by market cap. It was number 3 like earlier this week, I think it was. And
what does it do?
Well, Binance is basically like a discount for trading. You trade on Binance. It's just a useful friction coin. Like for make a Binance trade. Binance is a good coin to trade something into on Binance and then trade it out of Binance coin into something else. So it's kind of transitional. And the Binance, it's very big, and it's very fast. That's something I noticed. If you want to, you can make transactions happen really fast on Binance. So they're having a lot of problems.
The only problem with Binance is they've started to ban their U.S. users. And I'm surprised that wasn't what they did to you yet, Dave. But if they know that you're a U.S. user, there's a good chance that in some amount of time they will send you an email saying you've got 14 days to withdraw all your coins from their exchange because they're going to close your account because they, for whatever reason, they don't want to allow U.S. users onto their main website, but they have a U.S.-based Binance version where they do let U.S. users in. So they've got a whole separate pool.
It probably has a completely different set of policies because
know your customer.
They're the American government is very different, I think, from all other governments in the world in the way in how seriously it takes that kind of thing.
Yeah,
there might be legal differences too. So like if the U.S. government goes after Binance, it will be the U.S. Binance and not the rest of Binance.
Well, the other thing is a lot of regulations take the form of companies that do this shall not do that. Well, maybe that thing is something they do in Europe and they want to keep doing it. Yeah. Having two separate corporations means it's not the same actor doing both things.
Yep, that's true. But unfortunately, the U.S. version of Binance is nowhere near as large. Binance is the number 1 exchange on the planet, and the U.S. one's a fraction of the size and doesn't have near as many coins.
See, they could solve that problem just by having automatic arbitrage between those systems, and then you'd be dealing out of a bigger pool.
Dave, thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it. That's Dave Ridley, RidleyReport.com. Appreciate it. We got time for you if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. More about drug use and demystifying it coming up here in moments. It's Free Talk Live. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
What if the United States and the Soviet Union had fought on land, sea, air, and the astral plane, struggled for dominion across parallel dimensions, or on the surface of the moon? What wonders would have been unveiled? What terrors would have haunted mankind from those dark and dismal dimensions? Come closer, peer through a glass darkly, and discover the horrifying alternative visions of World War III from some of today's greatest minds in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Weird World War III. Available now from Baen Books at baenbooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. The number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We have some cool options for you, including the social media site that we've launched, social.freetalklive.com. It is a competitor to sites like Twitter and Facebook. In fact, it does exactly what Twitter does, except without the whole big tech overlord aspect. In fact, we really don't care what you post on social.freetalklive.com. So come on over and check that out. It's working out pretty great so far. There's a couple hundred people who've signed up. There's over 1,000 posts that have been made, and it's, I think, been less than a month that we've had the site up. So hop on over there, social.freetalklive.com.
And it's so much better than that because it's federated, which means you can communicate with people that are not on social.freetalklive.
That's right. That's right. Now, apparently there was a setting that we didn't have set initially that has now been set. I've not tested it yet, but I noticed last night that, or 2 nights ago, that the search wasn't actually searching posts. And that would be a useful thing to have, right? To be able to actually use the search to search the posts on the instance.
Absolutely.
So now we have turned that on. So that is now available supposedly. Like I said, I haven't checked it myself, but it is there. Social.freetalklive.com. And so I don't know if you can search the other instances to find people,
but you can follow somebody who's not on.
But if you know
social,
where they are.
Right,
yeah.
social.freetalklive.
Right.
Which is great because it makes the little universe that is social.freetalklive much, much, much bigger. You're not just able to communicate with other people on this one platform.
And the things that you're talking about, even if they're not implemented yet, now that they've got the base down, implementing them would be relatively trivial.
Oh, actually, you know what? It is working to search usernames now. So I just typed in the word free into the search box and found a ton of results. So that's good.
Groovy.
So check that out. Social.freetalklive.com. Let's go back to the phones, to your calls and thoughts. Jeff in Texas. Jeff, you're on Free Talk Live. Hello? Jeff? In Texas. Oh, I hear somebody. Somebody's there.
Hello?
Hello, Jeff. You're on the air.
Okay.
I just got a question for you guys.
Yes, sir.
So I want to know if you guys think that 3 to 10-year-old children should be able to make medical decisions in order to stop the natural development and or amputate their genitalia.
Did you say, what was it, 10-year-old children or 3 to 10-year-old children? What did you say?
3 from the age range of 3 to 10.
Boy. So I tend to think that if a child is under the care of their parents need to have some serious level of input into medical decisions, if not all the input into medical decisions. But I also understand the argument that somebody should be able to control their own body even at a young age. So I think this is a tough issue. What do you guys think?
I would definitely say that that this child would have, of course, a right to refuse any treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, and you know, if Dad really wanted a boy and he can't just go throwing testosterone into his little girl and see what happens.
I'll agree with you there.
You know, I mean,
but what about the reverse? What if the child says they want to start taking estrogen or testosterone or whatever?
I would ask who's going to pay for it. Because somebody's going to pay for it. Somebody's got to pay for it.
Well, what if there's somebody out there that's willing to pay for it? I mean, should the parent be able to say no?
I don't think so.
You're living under my roof. You don't get to do that.
I mean, I believe that the relationship between parent and child is agency. And so the Rothbard said it was ownership. And that's nonsense. Parents do not own children. At the same time,
I don't think that's how. I think that's how society treats it as ownership. I don't think it should be that way. But
yeah, but agency, I think, is the right way to describe that relationship. And when you're an agent for a property, you're an agent of the owner, and so you must act within. You have a fiduciary duty to behave in the way that you believe would be beneficial to the actual owner of the property.
I think there's a little lost in the analogy. Can you use the actual terms child and parent or whatever?
Yeah, basically, I would say that a parent can morally override a child's decision on some things to some extent, but that he would have a responsibility to act in ways that would reasonably be expected to bring about the well-being of that child. Just like, you know, if you're my agent and you're taking care of a rental property for me, you have a responsibility to me not to burn the place down because, you know, it's not your place. It's my place. You're just an agent.
I think the answer is it should be voluntary. And if we don't force the parent-child relationship, you know, living under your parents' roof, right? I mean, the problem comes down to if a child runs away, you know, the police are going to bring the child back to the parents, right? You know, and if you cut that out, well, then all of a sudden, you know, a lot of these problems to some degree go away.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just saying, like, in regards to a 3 to 10-year-old, because the federal government is now saying that a 3 to 10-year-old child has the right to do it without their parents' permission.
Well, I don't think it should be the government's decision at all.
Yeah.
So if the government is not going to get involved, then good for them.
Wholeheartedly.
Well, I don't know if that's what they're doing, nobody. I don't think it's that they're not going to get involved. I suspect there's a different proposal.
Are. There was an argument today.
What was being said, and where was this?
It was in the Senate.
Yeah, it's Rand Paul. And the new transgender Secretary of Health and Nonsense or something.
It says here in a story at NBCnews.com, Duke Health Centers for Gender Care for Children and Adolescents will offer children under 16 therapies to delay puberty and provide hormone replacement therapy for those 16 and older. Quote, during this time, your child must meet with the local therapist weekly to manage the emotional changes that happen during hormone therapy. So where's the part about the I guess it does say children under 16 therapies to delay puberty. Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, my question was, is it okay because you're about liberty and individual freedom, correct?
I am, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I am too. And I don't think the federal government should get involved. But when it pertains to a child, should a child be able to tell you they can chop their,
I think everybody has.
Who do you think should stop them is the question.
I think
who gets to make the decision that he knows what's better for them than they do?
Well, in this case, I think the argument would be the parent would get to make that decision.
And the parent
as long
may
as the
morally
child
be
is,
able to do that.
As long as the
but
child
the government can't.
I agree with you there, but as long as the child is living under those parents' roof, but then Chris brings up the fact that they should be free to leave if they would like.
I think it's always up to the individual to decide, and if your parent won't let you do something, well, you should be legally able to do it, but you have to maybe not under your parents' roof.
So 603-283-6160, but Jeff's question was about actual children who very rarely have any kind of real serious agency. More coming up. I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up at any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agrishosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agris Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agrishosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agrishosting.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up what you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about a very strange and I think for a lot of people uncomfortable topic of young people, in fact, children, as Jeff has called in to ask about. He says ages 3 to 10, should they be able to make gender-changing chemical castration, chemical taking, estrogen, testosterone, etc., cutting off genitalia sorts of decisions for themselves?
The cutting of things off, I'm pretty sure legally can't be done to a minor.
Well, is this not the argument that they're saying, that it should be allowed? I mean, it should be legally allowed.
I don't know what they're saying.
I don't know who's saying that. I'm pretty sure Rand Paul wasn't saying that.
Yeah, I suspect he wasn't either. And so we still have Jeff on the line here, and I want to bring him back on. Now, there was a news story here. NBCNews.com says Rand Paul from Kentucky compared gender-affirming surgery to genital mutilation during confirmation hearings for Dr. Rachel Levine, President Joe Biden's nominee for Assistant Secretary of Health. If approved, Levine will become the first openly transgender federal official to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. Paul, a former ophthalmologist, was questioning Levine about transition-related care for transgender youth when he said that, quote, genital mutilation is considered particularly egregious because it is nearly always carried out on minors and is a violation of the rights of children, unquote.
See, that is a very different thing, though, because if he's talking about circumcision, it's done for no reason. Okay, it's just... this is a tradition. And
well, some people have reasons.
Yeah.
Or religious reason, but there's no medical reason.
I don't want to second guess.
It's not always religious. Some people believe that it looks better to have male circumcision.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that's just what some
people believe. It does kind of look like a turtle wearing a snake wearing a turtleneck otherwise. But you know, the thing is, I really would not generally get surgery done on my child to make them look more attractive.
Neither would I.
I would not tend to get them plastic surgery.
And I think we all agreed that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think we all agreed that a child should be able to say no to something that their parents want to do to them. What do you think, Jeff?
Everyone believes the child should be able to say no. I'm arguing the opposite. That's what they're trying to argue, that the child should be able to do it without a parent's consent.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say they should be able to do it, you're talking about the whole range of everything from cutting off genitals to taking various different
nobody does that.
I think
under
that's
18.
not entirely accurate. You can look at the statistics, and I've done the research. Transgender people who don't take puberty blockers are 98% not to be transgender.
They're 98% what?
Not likely to convert to transgender.
So you're saying I'm sorry, run that by me one more time.
Okay. So if you're a boy and you think you're a child and you don't take puberty blockers or cut your genitalia off, you're going to grow out of it.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and I think that's one of the legitimate concerns that I think a lot of parents have is that children today are surrounded by propaganda about trans. And hey, I'm fine if you believe that you're a girl and you weren't born a girl. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. But I do understand the concern that a parent would have where their child may be acting out. They may be trying to do something that they know their parents won't like. Maybe they're not comfortable with who they are yet, or whatever their reasons are. They've decided, well, now I'm trans, even though as Jeff points out here, 5 years later they may not be trans anymore.
You know what this comes down to is it's the right to make a mistake, and I don't think it
well,
matters.
if you're cutting your genitals off, that's a pretty big
permanent mistake.
Well,
but it's a mistake that you have the right to make, and I don't think it matters. The age, I don't think matters here.
I think the thing is, if somebody makes the choice, let's take the medicalism out of it and just leave aside the question of what they're born and what their definitions are, and just say somebody says, I'm a boy and I want to take a drug that will make me a girl. Assume that drug has been invented. Should he be free to take that drug? If he chooses to, I would say yes. And if there's a
child, that's the argument. Nobody. If it's a child, are they allowed to say that?
Well, it's between them and the parents. Who do you want to stop them?
You have to remember that it's unlikely that you're going to have a young child who both says
statistically you're inaccurate.
Well, I haven't even finished what I was saying.
Yeah, I know. It's just that you were going to
Could I hear the end of the sentence so I could know what he's wrong about?
So what I'm saying is it's very unlikely that a child is both going to want to be genitally manipulated or have the sex change or whatever.
Gender reassignment surgery.
Gender reassignment, and have a parent willing to pay for it, at 3 to 10 years old. Now, maybe, when they're a little bit older, but most parents, I don't think, are going to say, oh, yes, let's do it.
Well, yeah, they're not going to be able to save the lawn mowing money to likely afford that surgery. That much is true.
Yeah, so
you're changing the argument. That's not the argument I'm making. The argument I'm making is, should children be able to tell their parents?
Okay, well, first off, that's not an argument. That's a question. So who do you think should stop them? Third time I've asked.
I've told you already. Do you not listen? I said the parents should be able to do that. And the argument is that the government is trying to take over and say that the child has the right to tell the parents what to do.
Well, certainly they can't force the parent to pay for it.
Well, they shouldn't be able to.
And they shouldn't be able to, and they
that's
can't.
a whole other argument. You can go into welfare and it will be free.
Okay, I've never heard of a 5-year-old going on welfare and getting enough money for gender reassignment.
I don't support the whole welfare thing.
But if you can show me an example, I'll have to believe that person exists.
Yeah, I don't support the welfare thing. If people wanted to donate to a charity to help 3 to 10-year-olds, do this against their parents' will, I say go for it.
Well, then they're going to have to take them out of their parents' house and take care of them, right? Because the parents shouldn't be obligated to take care of that child, right? At that point, because the parents should be able to set the rules and say, "Look, you're living under my rules. You're living. We're feeding you, kid. And if you want to keep getting fed." And keep having clothes on your back and keeping, in a warm place during the wintertime or whatever, then you'll follow our rules. Now, if you want to go take it to the streets, good luck to you.
And the thing is, this would solve a lot of problems with violence on children, because the children in countries that don't have these welfare systems will go and they will leave, even in very cold environments.
And some kindly person could actually take them in legally
if they wanted to.
Instead of the only people who are willing to take them in are pedophiles, because if you take them in, even if you're not a pedophile, you might well end up in prison.
Or whatever. It's an ugly situation. There's no doubt about it. I think one thing that most people would agree on, at least on this show, is that the government should not have tax money. The government shouldn't exist at all. Right. And if they are spending money to encourage this sort of behavior or to fund it, then I think that would we all agree that's a problem?
I think the government funding anything is wrong.
Yeah.
The government should not be.
It's not the government funding it. It's theft. It's taking money from other people and redistributing it.
Jeff, any other thoughts? Go ahead.
It is theft. It's theft. I agree with you. It's theft. I agree with that.
Thank you, Jeff, for the call tonight. I definitely appreciate it. I mean, this isn't always just an issue of what to do with gender reassignment, but there's differences on how people want to raise a child at all. I mean, some people believe in this thing called peaceful parenting. which I think has its limits. I like kind of the concept in general, but Mark, our co-host, has given some. He's got a kid. He's given some examples of like the peaceful parent will not interfere in any decision their child makes. If they're like not brushing their teeth, they'll just let them not brush their teeth, and then their teeth fall out, and then what happens? Or like if your kid's like rushing out in front of a car and doesn't 2 years old or whatever, you want to grab the kid and stop him from rushing out in front of the car. Yeah, you just violated the non-aggression principle, but you know what? That's part of your job as a parent. Right, yeah. So but some people don't even believe they should have any kind of influence over their. It's
guiding. It's guiding is what you need to do.
I'd say they have the right to make that decision to parent that way, though, if they want to.
I agree. 603-283-6160. You can take control.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Want to accept Bitcoin at your online store? There's a good chance you already have what you need: a WordPress using WooCommerce and a Bitcoin address. Now all you need to start taking Bitcoin payments on your website is the AnyPay app on your Android or iPhone. Just paste your Bitcoin address into AnyPay, then connect it to your website with our one-click plugin for WordPress. Now your website takes Bitcoin, start to finish in 15 minutes or less with no complicated steps. Download AnyPay from the App Store today.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. And since our caller brought it up there, let's get a little further into what happened with Rand Paul today in this hearing with this trans person, Ms. Levine, Rachel Levine, who is the purported, I guess, nominee for a Assistant Secretary of Health position.
She's more than purported. She is the nominee.
Yeah, and she would be the first transgender federal official if she is confirmed, according to NBCnews.com. Now, Paul asked Levine in this interview whether she supports, or claiming that she supports, surgical destruction of a minor's genitalia. He asked Levine if she believed minors are capable of making, quote, such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex. Levine, who is a pediatrician, responded that transgender medicine is, quote, a very complex and nuanced field with robust research and standards of care that have been developed, and then, unquote, promised to discuss specifics if she's confirmed. Well, you know, the whole thing is they want to know what you believe right now, not after you get confirmed what do you believe. So she dodged the question.
But we have to pass the bill to find out what's in it.
Yeah, she definitely dodged that question. Paul continued his line of questioning, asked if she supports permitting the government to override a parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia. Levine provided a similar response.
Is that really what the government is doing, though, or are they just not intervening in the relationship between doctor and patient?
He's not asking about what the government is doing. He's asking about what this woman would, or this person would support the government doing.
Okay.
So she dodged the question with a similar response, leading Paul to accuse her of evading the question. He further questioned criticism of prescribing hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19 by the same people who support hormones for transgender teenagers. Dr. Colt Wasserman, a fellow with Physicians for Reproductive Health who provides gender-affirming care to trans minors, told NBC News that Paul's questions and concerns are, quote, not based in medical fact whatsoever. He said gender-affirming care is understood and supported by major medical associations and physicians to be a, quote, life-affirming practice. Through an informed consent process, patients, parents, and their providers come together to support gender-diverse youth in the medical environment in a wide range of ways, which typically doesn't involve any kind of procedural intervention. He says there's a lot of concern about surgery or irreversible decisions when it comes to health care that's transgendered youth receive, but surgery is not a component of that care. According to the World Professional Association for Transgendered Health, in its standards of care regarding transgender adolescents, that surgery, quote, should not be carried out until patients reach the legal age of majority in a given country and patients have lived continuously for at least 12 months in the gender role that is congruent with their gender identity. The standards add the age threshold should be seen as a minimum criterion and not an indication in and of itself for active intervention. So they're basically saying that Rand Paul is getting a little overexcited, or predicting things that are not particularly acceptable within the standards of the industry here, suggesting that maybe children would have their genitals cut off or something like that. So he's saying that wouldn't be the case.
Even if they do that, they don't remove the genitals because they need all of those nerves to build the new set. So they just turn it inside out, more or less.
Okay. I'm not going there.
Yeah,
I'm just going to leave it.
Yeah. Rodrigo Hangletihin, a deputy executive director of the National Center for Transgender Equality, said Paul's language was hurtful to Levine and all the trans people watching, saying, quote,
they all felt the same way about it.
There's a lot of
wow. They're a unique group of people if all of them felt the same way.
Quote, there's a lot of misinformation out there about healthcare for transgender young people in particular, but what's really important to know is that all the leading medical institutions have researched this and really recognize that it's primary care. It's different for every trans young person, just because any kind of medical care is different for any kind of individual patient. So it's personalized, but this is legitimate healthcare. I mean, I can understand that, Rand Paul has legitimate concerns here that if some hard left people get involved in the government, that they might indeed support some more radical things than might currently be going on. I don't think that's, an unbelievable perspective for him to have. Now, whether or not that would actually end up playing out is a whole other question.
Yeah. And certainly the limits of care depend on the limits of the law, and quite often they're identical.
Mm-hmm. But not always, because we did find in recent news that, the law doesn't always matter. Some people will go and have their genitals cut off no matter what the law says. There was a story a few months ago about a guy. Now, he wasn't a child, but there was a guy who was looking for to have his testicles cut out. And he found some guys on the internet. There are websites.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there are websites where you can go and find these people. Now, apparently they're called cutters. Now, it's not like a teenager. Not like a teenager cutting themselves, on their arms for attention or whatever. But these
somebody else cutting themselves in the nuts for attention.
Other people, in this case. They find, people who are not professionals who may not have...
Well, there aren't any professionals, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So, they're professionals in that you might pay them for the job, but they're not professionals in that they would hang out their shingle publicly and, take customers that way. So you kind of have to know people who know people, find somebody online. And this guy traveled from Tennessee over to Oklahoma. He was picked up at the airport by the guys that were going to do the job. They took him to basically an old oil field where they had a shack. They kept him there overnight, and then the next day they operated on him. They did it for free because the man who was doing the operation wanted to eat the man's testicles later on.
Whoa.
So he had his own
Appalachian oysters.
He had his own motivations for performing the surgery, but the reason the case got brought into the forefront in the news was because they didn't patch him up real good. So he started to bleed out later on, and they couldn't stop the bleeding, so they ultimately decided to take him to the hospital so he didn't die.
Probably a good idea.
And
nice of him, yeah.
That's when, the government found out what was going on and came after these guys and, arrested them for...
What did they arrest them for?
I believe practicing medicine without a license.
Was that really
maybe
medicine?
Just for being nuts?
I don't know, man.
Because you are what you eat,
I don't remember the charges.
Right. But I could see them charging somebody with that. But at the same time, it's like, if you're getting somebody who is not a professional to cut certain things off without a license.
Yeah, you know what you're getting into.
That's not...
I wasn't practicing medicine. Yeah. They wash their hands first.
Yeah, the odds the odds that a child is going to find these people and that they would consent to work on them is pretty next to zero from ever happening. But the point is, there are people in the black market who will cut off your genitals for you.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of abortion. Even when it was illegal, there were still people doing it themselves and often dying or having somebody who was not skilled doing it.
I wonder if they offer gift certificates, because that would be a wonderful thing to get His Excellency.
To get one testicle removed and get the other one free?
Gift certificate for having his nuts taken off.
I don't think. I think you could make something like that. He's not going to use it anyway.
BOGO?
Huh?
Nothing. So there you go. It's 603-283-6160. That allows you to take control of the airwaves here. If you want to comment on this, you're certainly welcome to do that. You can bring up anything that you want. And yeah, we will talk about some uncomfortable topics here on Free Talk Live. There's no doubt about that. And I think that this does boil down ultimately to the fact that the government forces these family relationships that maybe shouldn't be forced. If you're in an abusive family, because it's not uncommon for moms, a mother or father or both, to be abusive towards their children and then have the government essentially force those children to stay in that home.
Yeah, I don't blame the abuser. I blame the government. Because at the end of the day, it's the government that is.
I've got room enough in my heart to blame them both.
At a certain point, it is the government that's keeping the child with the parents that are being abused.
Well, that's true, but in some cases, the abuse is also mental. Like you deal with some of the cults out there that just brainwash kids to believe that if they run away, then bad things are going to happen, so they don't even try to leave. Some of those cases.
Certainly, there's responsibility to go around, but at the end of the day, I think it's the government that's causing
they
most
empower
of the problem.
them. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And the government is essentially
I think a lot
abusers.
of that abuse would go away simply by getting rid of the government and stop forcing kids to live, in the home of whoever they were born with or custody of thereof.
603-283-6160 is the number here. Let's get back into to drug use. We've had some really unusual topics tonight, and we'll.
Did we stop?
Well, maybe you didn't. 603-283-6160. We'll continue discussing it.
We're not all on
here in moments. Hour 3 is on the way. It's Free Talk Live.
Look, I'm sorry, but you're in for a world of pain if you use Koinomi. The reason is their wallet doesn't support payments. The solution is simple. Let them hear your voice. Message Koinomi on Twitter, it takes 5 seconds, and tell them AnyPay sent you, because they're on the fence right now, and your voice will prove that people care about using Bitcoin for payments. Go tweet at Koinomi now. Or even better, leave a review in the App Store. They really pay attention there. Thanks.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Another vaccine on the horizon. I'm Rich Dennison, Fox News. Johnson & Johnson's single-dose vaccine today getting a recommendation for emergency use approval by an FDA advisory panel.
An official with Johnson & Johnson's vaccine division told the panel they are working on a second-generation shot to address virus mutations and variants.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. The Justice Department has made nearly 300 arrests tied to last month's deadly violence at the U.S. Capitol.
The acting Deputy Attorney General says the investigation into the January 6th attack at the U.S. Capitol is moving at a speed and scale that is unprecedented. The Deputy AG also says, in addition to the January 6th riot, the Justice Department is prioritizing the detection and disruption of domestic terror threats and violent extremism in all forms.
Fox's Jared Halpern on Capitol Hill. Facing criticism from Democrats, the Biden administration is defending yesterday's airstrike in Syria.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says President Biden had the legal authority to launch airstrikes on buildings owned by Iranian-backed militias. And she said the move was a proportional response to recent rocket attacks against U.S. interests.
It was conducted together with diplomatic measures that were also underway. It included consultation with coalition partners.
The White House did not consult with rank-and-file members of Congress, but leadership was in the loop. In a statement, Democratic Senator Tim Kaine said offensive military action without congressional approval is not constitutional absent extraordinary circumstances.
Fox's Rachel Sutherland in Washington. Texas Senator Ted Cruz among today's speakers at the Conservative Political Action Conference in Orlando, criticizing President Biden's administration.
Joe Biden and the radicals in his administration, they are already overshooting. They are already going too far. Their policies don't work. They are disasters. They are bad. They are destroying jobs. They are stripping our freedom.
Former President Trump is scheduled to speak at the CPAC event on Sunday. America is listening to Fox News.
Join over 24,000 of some of the fastest growing companies in the world who rely on NetSuite. Just ask Sean Nelson, founder of Lovesac.
We started as a beanbag company in my parents' basement. And the next thing I knew, we were one of the fastest growing furniture companies in the world. Only problem, we still had multiple systems for everything.
NetSuite gives you visibility and control over your financials, inventory, e-commerce, HR, and more.
Lovesac furniture is built to last and infinitely adaptable, just like NetSuite.
Find out how NetSuite can help your company with a free product tour at netsuite.com/relax.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she has the votes needed to pass a $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief measure tonight, even without Republican support.
This is, again, a value. This is a priority. We will get it done.
The House version includes a hike in the minimum wage to $15 an hour, but that proposal won't be included in the Senate package. It was ruled out by the Senate parliamentarian. Secretary of State Antony Blinken today urged Central Americans without travel papers not to undertake risky journeys to the U.S. as the Biden administration deals with fast-rising immigration across the southern border. In a virtual meeting with officials in Texas and Mexico, Blinken says the U.S. is strictly enforcing border laws, adding the southern border is closed to irregular migration. The number of apprehensions at the border have increased in recent weeks as Central Americans flee a humanitarian crisis. A judge has ruled the CDC's moratorium on evictions is unconstitutional.
The ruling by U.S. District Judge John Barker of the Eastern District of Texas sided with landlords, saying, quote, although the COVID-19 pandemic persists, so does the Constitution. The Trump administration gave broad powers to the CDC in September to temporarily halt evictions with an order aimed at curbing the spread of COVID-19 due to housing insecurity. The protection was extended by Congress and again in January by the Biden administration until the end of March. Landlords and property owners sued in October, saying the government didn't have the power to stop evictions. Judge Barker, a Trump appointee, said
the number of users who actually enjoy Facebook is down to 4. And Apple announces a new iPhone with the N-word on the back, knowing customers will buy it anyway. And now for the delayed and utterly thoughtless romantic gesture that is the Onion Week in Review. Self-identified 9/11 truther Dennis Shaw told reporters Tuesday he's absolutely convinced the United States government has orchestrated an intricate plot to systematically destroy the last 11 years of his life. Shaw, who since 2001 has spent nearly every waking minute poring over footage of the World Trade Center attack and even handing out truther pamphlets every afternoon, says the government is behind the gradual collapse of his personal and professional life, adding that the conspiracy, quote, goes all the way to the top.
Before 2001, I'd see my friend Stephen Copley every couple of weeks, and now he won't even answer my calls. The government got to him too. Think about it. My coworkers, my wife, my friends, everyone calling me crazy after September 11th and wanting nothing to do with me. What are the chances of that?
This is the Onion News Network.
A report finds it's not okay to just start talking to people you don't know, and a monstrosity is created in the Frito-Lay laboratory. This is the Onion Week in Review. Local newborn Nathan Jameson surprised the world earlier this morning by irrevocably losing all faith in humanity after just 6 days. Though he's not yet developed the capacity for speech, spokespeople for the 6-day-old baby have confirmed he already knows that humans cannot be trusted and that most people lack self-awareness about their own destructive tendencies.
While most people need around 30 or 40 years to truly understand that the vast majority of humanity is shallow and irredeemable, baby Nathan's convinced that he has seen all that he needs to see. People have been nice and even brought him toys and presents. But the fact is, Nathan knows they're all full of shit.
And in this week's science report, botanists discover trees are all slowly trying to strangle each other. In other news, a fun-loving turtle is all business when it comes to feeding time, and a partygoer rolls a couple of fat burritos to pass around.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. We're kicking off the third hour. The number, if you want, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Beginning of the show, we were doing, we weren't doing the interview, but we're sharing an interview with Dr. Carl Hart, the author of Drug Use for Grown-Ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. Then we got into a unusual conversation with a caller about sort of the use of drugs for changing gender. And so if you want to comment on whatever you want, you're welcome to join us here. And with you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
So we're going to go back into your or to this story, and we'll get to your calls if you make them. But you can also contact us online over at freetalklive.com. Hop into our chat server there where people are busily talking about various different things in different chat rooms. You can go to chat.freetalklive.com to find those rooms and get the instructions on how to join that server. So Dr. Carl Hart, he's a neuroscientist. He is a professor at Columbia University, and he wrote a book, Drug Use for Grown-Ups. And it sounds like it's a really interesting book. He talks a lot about people, being able to make choices for themselves as long as they don't harm others. And he's really doing an interesting job of kind of taking down some of the mythology surrounding a lot of these drugs and drug overdoses. He specifically addresses opiate overdoses and says that a lot of the people who are being reported as opiate overdoses, a lot of drug deaths that are reported as opiate overdoses, may have involved opiates, but they also involved a lot of other drugs. There were other drugs that were found in the systems of the people who died from so-called opiates, and then they just chalked them up either in the media or the government for whatever propaganda purposes and called it an opiate death. So he says, look out.
Certainly what we've seen during COVID indicates that they have no problems falsifying that kind of data for political advantage. So
absolutely.
Sure.
So he's being interviewed by Sean Illing from Vox.com, and Illing says, you mentioned Spain, Austria, and a couple of other countries, but have any of these places emulated fully the drug model you'd like to see in the U.S., and if so, what were the results? Carl Hart responds by saying, at the moment, no country has legally regulated all the drugs discussed in my book. I think several countries are on the right track, including Portugal and Switzerland. Ultimately, and by the way, now Oregon with decriminalization of all personal amounts of all drugs in Oregon, which happened starting in February, so it's now been like 3 weeks that's been
a tourist hotspot.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And of course, the problem remains until they've eliminated the laws and eliminated any licensing regime that they may have, they're still having a war on drugs.
Yeah, it still needs to be legal to buy, sell, grow, manufacture,
should
distribute,
be regulated like carrots.
Ship. Yeah, all of these things should be legal. But allowing individual people to have some personal amount of drugs is still a good step in the right direction, and that's what they're doing in Portugal.
Yeah.
And he goes on to say that ultimately it would be ideal for countries to regulate drugs people seek in a similar way that alcohol is regulated. I disagree completely with that.
Good idea.
What you want to see, if you're a libertarian, if you're a liberty-minded person, what you want to see happen is not regulation by government, but by the free market. But by allowing the market actors to come up with their own standards for manufacture, to come up with their, because you have these things in areas where government is not involved, like in your computer field, for instance. There are certifications, and some certifications are better than others and more respected than others.
Yeah, they're not all legally mandated.
Almost none of them are, I don't think, right?
None of them are.
I mean,
there's
FCC
nothing that you're legally required to be certified to do.
I mean, like FCC certifications are certainly.
You're talking about for hardware.
Yeah.
I meant for like computer.
Okay. I was thinking like programming.
Like computer repair services. That's totally unregulated.
Or programming.
Yeah, totally unregulated computer repair services.
Or you can look at other industries. For instance, in the restaurant business, yes, there are regulations, health code regulations, but a lot of restaurants go much higher than that. They have their own set of standards. Whether they be provided by the franchise, whatever the corporation's providing a franchise to somebody, they usually have a set of standards. Some companies, they hire ServSafe and others to certify their employees, so they know how to handle things safely in the kitchen and things like that. So, the market can provide these things. Underwriters Laboratories, for example, is another great example of the market doing its own kind of self-regulation.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing is, people don't think about the cost of regulation to random others. There's a lot of people who are homeless today who would not be homeless if there were fewer regulations on what kind of home you could rent, what kind of home you could build, what the amenities have to be.
That's right.
Maybe somebody would rather sleep in a room with fewer windows than are permitted by law than sleep under a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
but he can't afford that many windows. And however many windows the landlord builds, that's going to be reflected in the rent.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I want to point out too is that when people think things are regulated, often they're regulated and then certain companies get like exceptions to them. Or something along that lines. And I can think of some great examples. Like they had some exceptions for computers. If you imported a computer, you didn't have to pay a duty on delivery. But if you assembled computers in the United States from parts, all those parts had duties, but but the computers themselves would then incur those costs. Whereas if you just imported the full computer, it wouldn't incur those costs. And what that basically did was the only companies that were affected were the companies who were small businesses actually operating in the United States and bringing jobs to the United States. And the whole idea with the duties in the first place, or the tariffs, I should say, is to bring jobs back to the United States. But you've literally put people out of work and you've shut the small businesses that actually are operating here.
Sean asks Carl Hart, so why do you think it's important to divorce addiction from drugs? He says, addiction has everything to do with concurrent illnesses. Someone may have pain issues not being treated, or schizophrenia, or anxiety, or depression. People with these conditions are far more likely to become addicted. They have to approach drug use very differently from people who don't have these conditions. So that's one thing. And another thing is how we talk about people in, say, the Rust Belt, where the opioid crisis has hit especially hard. So many of these people used to be employed in factories that have been shipped to other countries or scaled back. These were middle-class jobs, and now they're gone. So you have people who lost their role in society, whose life has been drained of meaning, and that's what drives addiction, whether it's for alcohol or opioids. And then you have people who just aren't mature enough to use drugs responsibly. When I was younger, he says, I did a lot of stupid stuff and probably met the criteria for being an alcoholic. But as I developed and learned skills, that changed. So if we're concerned about drug addiction in general, we have to focus on the root causes. Marrying drugs and addiction leads to focusing on drugs and in turn hiring more cops who cannot deal with the underlying problems. And we've seen this so many times where a person who has these underlying problems, they get arrested and now they got more problems.
Yeah.
And it hasn't solved whatever their underlying problems was. It probably made those problems worse. Now they don't have a job. They might have had a job before they got arrested. They didn't show up at work the day after they got arrested. They got fired. Oh, they've been in jail for the last 2 months. Guess what? You just lost your apartment.
Yeah.
You know?
This is a thing. Everybody's always out to punish people, to try and solve a problem. And usually punishment doesn't solve the problem. It just makes it worse. What you really want to focus on is minimization of harm. And, that applies across the board, whether we're talking drugs or pretty much anything else.
Right.
There's ultimately going to be harm in society. And, punishment, what's that going to do? Okay, so you got revenge on somebody.
Nobody who
really helps society.
It's not helping
as a whole.
them at all.
It doesn't help them.
It doesn't help the
society.
individual. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody who's interacted with addicts on a regular basis can rationally make the argument that the problem is they're not suffering enough.
Right.
We're going to help you by putting you in a jail cell. No, it does. What is the goal of these people? It's always interesting to ask the drug warrior.
The goal of these people, it's very simple. They want to protect Big Pharma's turf from superior competitors.
Well, that's what the politicians want, for sure.
And that's all. Everybody's in it for the money, mostly. And then there's a few misguided idiots who think they're going to save the world.
That's a good point. 603-283-6160 is the phone number. Phones are open as always here. You can take control of the airwaves, whether you want to comment on drugs and the abuse of them or the use of them and the mythology surrounding it. You're welcome to join us here. More with Carl Hart in moments. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Having taken her father's throne, Sarah Calhoun has fallen out with one of her best allies, and her brother Nathaniel heads into Imperial Philadelphia with a reckless plan. Her uncle Thomas, armed with new powers and new allies, aims to remove Sarah from her throne and from the world of the living. To survive, and to gain the strength she needs to fight an impossible war, Sarah must unite the Mound Builder Kings to enact an ancient rite that will propel her beyond mortality. Servant Daughter by T.J. Butler is the newest entry in the Dragon Award-winning Witchy War series from Baen Books at BaenBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. Want to accept Bitcoin at your online store? There's a good chance you already have what you need. A WordPress using WooCommerce and a Bitcoin address. Now all you need to start taking Bitcoin payments on your website is the AnyPay app on your Android or iPhone. Just paste your Bitcoin address into AnyPay, then connect it to your website with our one-click plugin for WordPress. Now your website takes Bitcoin, start to finish in 15 minutes or less with no complicated steps. Download AnyPay from the App Store today.
My name is Angel Rach. I'm a mother of 2 teenage children, and I fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the right to use the medicine that saved my life. I've been permanently disabled for 10 years, with an inoperable brain tumor, wasting syndrome, and several other serious conditions. For 4 years, I was in a wheelchair, in so much pain, I couldn't even hug my kids. The hardest part was looking in their eyes and seeing how much they were suffering because of my medical condition. The medicine that gave me my life back and gave my kids their mom back was cannabis, also known as medical marijuana. With medical marijuana, I can walk, maintain my weight, and I can be a mom. Without it, my doctors believe that I would die. To learn more about medical marijuana, contact Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or on the web at mpp.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. The number, if you want to join us here, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about some of the drug war myths that Carl Hart has been taken apart here in an interview from Fox. Carl Hart, the author of Drug Use for Grown-Ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. We can tell you more about that on the way. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Chris.
As we continue here, I do want you to know about Fork Fest coming up here in 4 months. It's going to be here before you know it.
Wow. It's just 4 months away now, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's going to be June 28th through July 4th, and it will be a decentralized Liberty camping festival. It's happening in Rogers Campground, the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Absolutely splendid location. It'll have, I don't know, hundreds of people attending it?
At least.
We don't know. We have no idea because there are no tickets that are being sold to this because there are no tickets.
Well, we do have a map now, though, so
That's
we
right.
do have a better idea than before.
And I'm loving the map, by the way. It was provided by the boys over at AnyPay. you can go to forkfest.com and you can see the map where people have already started to list where they're planning on having their sites.
And I know there's more people on there than are listed on the map still. So
Then what?
Then are listed on the map still. So I know there's people who have not listed themselves yet. But they said they registered. So.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting year. I think this is going to lead more people to find more of the services that are available on the campground, because that was always a challenge. Is where are the things? Where do you go? And so the map will help with that. Check out also forkfest.party. That's a site that'll give you some basic information about the event, the when and the where, and that sort of thing. You can connect into the Forkfest Telegram chat room, as well as the Forkfest forum, and more. Head over to forkfest.party. And again, mark your calendar. Start planning now for June 28th through July 4th. This summer, we will see you there. I believe the three of us, we're all going, right?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Right on. All right, we're going to go to Anarcho-Republican calling us from Montana. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead. Hello?
With a quote from the venerable Edward R. Murrow.
Okay.
A nation of sheep begets a government of wolves.
Mm.
And now the issue about this drug problem is, to me, I'm not a big opiate user. I mean, even if they give them to me if the doctor gives them for some reason, I use them for a couple days. They make me constipated. I don't like feeling numb. So I stash them away, and then I use them whenever I hurt myself. But see, the problem is the prohibition means that not only are we protecting, abusers supposedly, what we're doing is keeping, normal people from the use of painkillers that could be useful to them. Advantageous if they hurt themselves. You hurt yourself, you got to go to the doctor, you got to go to the clinic, you got to beg them for the right painkiller so you can feel better. It actually hurts more people. It's a minority of addicts, but the majority have to face the prohibition. I'll give you an example. It used to be you could get really good cough syrup, NyQuil or whatever was really good. All of a sudden, I guess kids figured out if they guzzled it, it'd make them high.
Turpin
Hydrate. I can't get good cough syrup anymore. So when I get a cold, I can't even get good cough syrup anymore.
Yeah.
This is what's happening to our society. So there's a.
By the way,
penalty
kids,
on
don't
the
try this at
majority.
home. What you're referring to is dextromethorphan hydrobromide is the active chemical in there.
Also, turpin hydrate and things like that
What
have
does that do?
codeine, so that's a mild opiate.
I'm not sure that you can just drink this stuff. Isn't that
you can? It's not a good idea. That's why I was saying kids don't try this at home.
It'll kill you, won't it? Because of the ingredients. I think you have to extract.
How else
the...
do you take cough syrup? Of course you drink it. How else do you take cough syrup? Of course you drink it.
Yeah.
Well, no. Large amounts of it
don't
is.
take it anyway.
I presume is how you would.
I mean, if you drink enough of it, it will kill you. But if you take enough of anything with codeine, then it will kill you. There's a sweet spot between,
So in that case, nobody gets to have a bad sore throat taken care of. That's what's. So I have to stash this stuff away. But let me tell you something. Forget about the expiration dates. I was thinking, I had a couple of Tylenol. I had a bad hangover one day. Had a couple of Tylenol 3s. I thought, well, these have been around for a couple of years, 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I better take 2 of them. Bad idea.
Ooh,
bad idea.
Really?
They didn't lose their juice. So what I suggest is when you get the medicine, stash it away in case you break a leg or bust a thumb, or like I did, I dropped a hammer on my toe today. No painkiller. I had to suffer.
Well, these days you can get anything you want on the dark web.
That's true. That's worth looking at.
Well, yeah. I mean, sure. If you want to, there's nefarious characters involved in all that too.
I got some antibiotics around the house just in case.
I'm going to leave you with one last quote. This is my own. Being a big person requires a small government.
I like it.
All right, guys.
I like
Good
it.
night.
Thank you for the call tonight. I appreciate it.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of people who are pretty enormous getting their welfare checks.
Yeah, that's true too. I think he meant it differently, but but I did want to follow up on what I was saying about kids don't try this at home. The reason why you don't want to drink a lot of cough syrup, Chris, is because it has a bunch of other things in it. The active ingredient they might be seeking, whether it's codeine or whether it's dextromethorphan hydrobromide, which is a cough suppressant that can lead to what's the terminology? It is a dissociative. So if you drink enough, if you take enough DXM, you will dissociate, and that's what some of the people are looking for when they're drinking these things. But you're also getting a bunch of acetaminophen at the same time, and whatever other crap they're putting in these, NyQuils or whatever. So it's not a good plan.
I thought the main thing that people were doing was they were boiling it down and creating like heroin or something.
No.
No. You can use cough syrup in the process of making meth.
Meth. Yeah.
Meth.
That's what
That's
you're
it.
thinking
Yeah.
of. Yep. And then in that case, what is it they're looking for there? There's a different chemical.
They start out with
pseudoephedrine.
It's pseudoephedrine. Yeah.
And that's now highly restricted, and now they've got this stuff behind the counter, and it's like a big pain in the butt to get.
Yeah,
and
I'm just
that's
basically
several steps out. At first they were just making it from ephedrine.
Mm-hmm.
Then they learned how to make ephedrine out of pseudoephedrine when they outlawed ephedrine.
Yeah, I was just basically saying don't make the mistake of just start drinking a bunch of the stuff because it may not have
That's
the
a
effect that
mistake.
you want,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it may have an effect, but it'll also have other things
right. Like
you should not have.
If your kidney goes or whatever, or liver or whatever it is.
If you really want to try dextromethorphan hydrobromide, I would recommend getting Dexalone, which is a product that just has DXM in it. It doesn't come along with the acetaminophen or anything like that. Now, I'm not going to say that it's going to be a good time. I'm not going to, recommend it per se. But if that's what your intention is, get the actual chemical and don't get the other things that go along with it.
Yeah, I actually bought some of that powdered. I thought it was Molly, but it wasn't.
I've actually seen people selling DXM as Molly, and it is not at all Molly. And that was one of the first times that my ex-girlfriend and I ever had a drug tested at drug detection labs, which you can go to the website. Is it ecstasydata.org? I know they got a new URL. I'll check that for you here. But very, very useful site where you can actually send in your drugs that you've purchased. And you got to pay for the results, but it's better to pay a few bucks and know for sure what you're going to put in your body rather than just trusting, some dealer somewhere who, in a lot of cases, the dealers don't know where they're getting things from. But the website has actually been changed. It's now drugsdata.org. drugsdata.org. You can go there. And anyway, we sent in what was supposed to be MDMA to this website, and it came back as 100% DXM. It wasn't a shred of MDMA in it.
You gotta be careful.
You do. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. If you want to join us here, we're trying to explode some of the myths about drugs and drug use, drug prohibition. If you want to comment, you can join us here. And again, the number is 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Nobody, and Chris here on Free Talk Live. Don't forget to join our chat server at chat.freetalklive.com.
Carl Wattner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Wattner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, open phones if you want to join in here, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. The website, freetalklive.com. Lots of features there. You can download archives that go back for years, like 15 years basically worth of archives there, totally free. More than you could possibly listen to. Over there at freetalklive.com. With you tonight, you've got Ian.
I'm the story that politicians tell to frighten their children.
Chris.
Indeed. So we're talking about something that the politicians definitely don't want to talk about, the supermajority of them, and that is drugs, use and abuse, and those are different concepts, and that's one of the things that Carl Hart points out. Now, we don't agree with Carl Hart on everything because he does support regulation of drugs, and that's always unfortunate. It's so sad that there's so many people who are in the sort of the drug decrim world that support regulations as though it's somehow going to be a good thing. And ultimately, all that does is it takes, if you go from an illegal status on drugs to a regulated status, it's just still a controlled marketplace. It's just that now the government is letting its cronies be the dealers instead of criminals.
So they're solving the same problem in a different way. The problem is that Big Pharma isn't getting the money. Mm-hmm. So the first thing they do is they come out with Suboxone and methadone, both of which are more addictive than heroin, but if you do them, you won't get thrown in prison so long as you're buying them from Big Pharma.
That's right.
And now they've got the marijuana cartels. So, yeah, the marijuana business is legal in some places, but where it's legal only for cronies, and the rest of us, the government is still at war. It's a great big club. I ain't in it. I ain't never gonna be in it.
Yeah, this is a key thing I think that we see in industries, all sorts of different industries. The government creates regulation solely for the purposes of handing money to their friends and whatnot. And it's it doesn't matter whether we're talking about your television service or your phone service or drugs or electronics. Everything is set up towards essentially like some sort of redirecting funds from your or my pockets to somebody else's pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I love the leftists are so cute when they think that the biggest thing that government does for business is tax cuts. It's like tax cuts. Well, sure, that's nice, but no, giving them a monopoly in the first place is where they screwed up. That's the real crime.
They don't even have to They don't even have to like stamp a monopoly and say you're a monopoly. All they have to do is create regulations that
Just
make
keep everybody out.
It makes it impossible for anybody else to do business that isn't a huge corporation, like a major international corporation.
Or somebody who's bought the right influence. I know that one of the software companies I was with decided to become a military contractor, which it did by hiring a retired general who knew nothing about software to
course.
basically,
it's all about who you know.
And he knew congressmen though.
Yep.
And so basically 1 year they wrote into their spending bill a description of a piece of software that could have been ripped directly from our requirements document that we used when we wrote the software, and nobody on earth had a product like that or could have developed it in time to offer it for sale. So of
guess
course
who got the deal?
We got the sale.
I've seen
and then the Navy didn't pay and we went bankrupt. Because we're not in the club.
The crazy thing is I've seen this so many times, and I've seen it firsthand, and even when the company, and the crazy thing is, like, this kind of stuff happens even when it's not intended to, like, benefit the business. It's just purely intended to benefit a government employee to make his job easier or whatever. Rather than getting, different products, maybe you get one product from one company, and you want to know that product is going to work with whatever it is that you've got. So instead of having like a real open bid process, with a sort of a more general set of specifications, now it's all of a sudden it's a very specific specification. It's a certain model number of product, even though there's other products on the market with the same chipsets or that would also work. So only one company can effectively bid.
Mm-hmm. I want to get back into this interview here. Sean Illing interviewing Carl Hart. He is the neuroscientist and teacher, professor at Columbia University, author of Drug Use for Grown-Ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. A question from the author here at Vox.com from the interviewer, Sean. He says, I'm still confused about your argument against drawing any distinctions between drugs. I cover some of the emergent research on psychedelics and mental health, and what I hear over and over again is that psychedelics like psilocybin, that's the magic mushroom drug, are non-toxic and non-addictive, and that drugs like alcohol and heroin are toxic and highly addictive. Is that just misleading? Carl Hart says, it's misleading. So the way we model addiction is by studying rats. Rats will readily take cocaine. If you put an intravenous catheter in their cage and allow them to receive injections of cocaine, they'll learn how to press a lever and take it. You have to deprive them of food and all kinds of things to get them to do it, but they'll do it if you deprive them of certain things. Now, if you take a drug like psilocybin...
And the biggest thing that seemed to make the difference in the studies that I've read about, they deprived them of companionship. They deprived them of connection to other rats.
Yep. Now, if you take a drug like psilocybin or LSD and you try and teach rats to self-administer, they won't do it. We've worked hard to get a different result, but they just won't do it. So we look at these studies and we conclude that rats will take cocaine, but they won't take these other drugs. That's our model of addiction. Cocaine is more addictive than psilocybin. Now, this falls apart, he says, when you really look at it carefully, because you look at something like nicotine. Rats won't take it. It's a toxic substance, and they won't do it. But humans, it's the most addictive drug that we have. But that's never mentioned in a lot of these discussions. Rats won't really take alcohol either unless you make it really sweet and essentially trick them into taking it. My point isn't that all drugs are the same.
So it's not the alcohol they want, it's the sugar.
Indeed. My point isn't that all drugs are the same. It's that we selectively present a lot of this data, which is why I call it misleading. The reality is that any drug can become addictive under the right conditions, and any drug can be seen as non-addictive under the right conditions. Illing says, is it empirically accurate to say that some drugs are, in fact, more addictive than others?
That seems a little bit misleading because it's not the drug that changes. The drug is the same no matter what. It's the observer who is different.
Well, that's what he's saying. The conditions.
It's the other,
He's saying the observer is one of the conditions.
So the drug doesn't become more or less addictive, though. The person becomes more or less susceptible to addiction.
Indeed. So the next question, is it empirically accurate to say that some drugs are in fact more addictive than others? He says there's not enough evidence to make that blanket statement unless you're merely talking about one component of addiction. If we're talking, for example, about physical dependence, then we have to say that opioids produce a lot of physical dependence, whereas drugs like LSD do not.
Yeah. And nicotine is probably the strongest physical dependence.
Sean Illing says the physical dependence component seems pretty significant, but I'll just ask, what's the strongest argument you've heard on the other side of this debate? Carl Hart responds by saying, damn, that's a good question. Honestly, what I constantly hear is some variation of drugs are bad because we said so. Drugs have been so stigmatized for so long, and we've been conditioned to think of them as inherently bad, that these narratives are just hardwired into us at this point. But I just haven't heard an argument based on logic and evidence that makes me rethink my fundamental position. I'm not saying that argument doesn't exist, but I am saying I haven't heard it. And then Illing asks him, what's the biggest price we pay for the hysteria and stigmas around drugs? Hart says, I think we pay a tremendous cost by curtailing people's liberties, and it's difficult to estimate or calculate that price.
See, I would say the highest price we pay is all the people who die because of the war on drugs.
603-283-6160, and there are a lot of those people, but think about the millions of people who've been locked up and had their lives, even if they haven't died, they've had their lives stolen from them.
Yeah, that's true.
Years and years of billions of dollars worth of productive time down the drain. More coming up here in moments. This is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
If you're looking for work, the person you are applying to is probably so swamped with applicants that he or she is tough to reach. So call early in the day, before 8 a.m., before the palace guards arrive. You'll need your prospect's direct number, and here's a sneaky way to get it. Suppose the company's main number is 555-5000. You should call 555-5012. When someone says, "Good morning, Pam Johnson," you should innocently say, "Oops, somebody here must have written this down wrong. I was calling for Tom Frederick. What's his direct number?" If the very next thing you hear isn't Pam giving you Tom's number, it may be, "Good morning, Tom Frederick." For more tips for job seekers and getting better results in all your day-to-day communication, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
over time with things like heroin.
Because your body wouldn't actually get sick off of that like it would with heroin, right? Because heroin, I mean, it's like a whole other animal, correct?
Yeah, heroin has a much higher level of physical addiction, but the interesting thing is I've tripped with addicts. They don't feel the withdrawal on heroin addicts. I mean, they don't feel the withdrawal when they're on mushrooms or LSD.
Yeah, they're too distracted, right?
Yeah, they're too distracted, and even that withdrawal, what that shows is that the withdrawal is not entirely physical. The withdrawal is, I believe, to some extent psychosomatic. People become addicted to things in part, I think, because we tell them that they will.
So they know it's coming, and then they expect it, and there you go, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, a self-fulfilling prophecy combined with, I'm sure there's there's definitely a kernel of truth to it. There are some serious physiological reactions, but I think that it's much worse because we say you will be addicted to this, and that addiction will show you certain symptoms.
Well, I'm sure that the test rats, like they're not going to be gaslighted into thinking that, this is a psychosomatic thing when they're like freaking out, So, I understand. It's like two different animals, but the LSD is not the panacea for people to help get off breaking addictions, right?
There is no panacea. There's no perfect cure for anything.
Right.
But certainly it is something that I would like to experiment with more addicts, and I would like to find out. And I don't do that in a medical context. I do it in a spiritual context. So I'm not practicing medicine. I'm practicing religion.
Okay, we'll have to make sure that disclaimer is noted.
Yeah. And AA pretty much acknowledges that it's that it is a spiritual, not a physical malady. And so, most of the spirituality of my church was jacked from AA. It's just a lot of people could benefit from the way of life that they espouse, even without a drug problem and even without total abstinence.
Yeah. You just got to look at the whole animal and not just, piece by piece.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, man. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pepsi. I appreciate it.
All right.
One of the things that I realized when I took that trip is that this was when I was getting off crack, was that the same thing that I was doing when I was chasing crack, it was the same thing I was doing before I ever smoked crack, chasing girls. Okay, chasing other things, chasing excitement, chasing the next party. I was still trying to basically keep myself distracted from the reality of my life in the same way. And a lot of those things went way down in terms of my priority for them after I took that trip. So the interesting thing about my journey in and out of crackhead land is I came out better than I went in.
I'm glad you're better.
Yeah.
Glad to have you back.
Yeah, indeed. So let's continue here. David is on the line in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, as to what you're talking about, the ultimate question, and there is only one question, and let me prefix that with is, the problem with government is that they force on you what they consider to be help, and what the true answer is which you already agree with, is to offer help in the best you know how to people that you see as needing help, but don't force it on them. And combined with that offer of help is your right to defend yourself against those that don't accept the help and can't control themselves. And government has become...
And also to defend yourself against those obsessed with helping you.
Yeah. So let me finish my statement. And so the ultimate question is, when, American people, are you going to stand up for what you have a right to, which is, once again, written plainly in your founding documents?
All righty. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties.
Technicalities.
Yeah.
Technicalities.
Can you mute that? Nobody? That'd be appreciated if you could do that. Thank you. And thank you for the call, David. Appreciate that. Carl Hart in the interview here, the final statement from Vox.com. The question was, what's the biggest price we pay for the hysteria and stigmas around drugs? And he says, I think we pay a tremendous cost by curtailing people's liberties and it's difficult to estimate or calculate that price. He says further, there's a reason that we're required to learn Patrick Henry's speech, "Give me liberty or give me death." We also pay a great deal in terms of using drug hysteria to divert attention away from the real problems. Numerous preventable deaths occur each year by not providing drug checking services, by not removing Tylenol from oxycodone formulations, by not educating people on the risk of specific drug combinations. In general, the nation's war on drugs pits its practice, which is restricting specific groups' liberty, against its promise: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The cost of this fundamental inconsistency is incalculable. And I think we were touching on that a little bit in the last segment, that think about the billions of hours that have been wasted by putting millions of people behind bars. How many people's lives have been just thrown down the drain, and their potential to accomplish things in life, even while they might have a drug addiction, has been completely wasted. It's incalculable. You cannot have any idea how much better we all could be if all of the people who spent time just behind bars, let alone all the dead ones, could have actually done something productive with their time instead of just rotting. It has been Free Talk Live. And hopefully things won't be broken tomorrow night. I apologize about all the issues there in the last remaining moments of this episode. I don't know what the podcast is going to look like, because I think that that last segment's a little on the short side. See you tomorrow. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
The latest episode of Questioning Authority is next after the news on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Moving forward with the coronavirus relief package, I'm Rich Dennison, Fox News. The House is preparing to vote tonight on President Biden's COVID relief proposal.
House Democratic leaders say they have the votes to pass a $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief measure tonight, even without any support expected from Republicans. That House measure will include a minimum wage hike, increasing the wage to $15 an hour by 2025. But that proposal will not make the cut in the Senate. The parliamentarian there says budget rules won't allow it. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and other top Democrats are considering alternatives, including a plan to increase taxes on businesses that don't hit pay thresholds for workers.
Fox's Jared Halpern on Capitol Hill. President Biden was in Harris County, Texas today, reviewing damage and recovery efforts from last week's deadly winter storm.
Thousands of people are still under a boil water notice. 1.5 million people in Harris County were at one point without power. They had no heat and lost water supply, and water lines froze froze. Texas Emergency Management Chief Nim Kidd gave an update on the damage, including in schools.
Over 4,600 of their buildings had broken water pipes in them. We've got a long way to go, Mr. President. I know we can get through this together, but we've just got to keep marching forward.
The president is also in Texas to encourage people to get vaccinated against COVID.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. The annual Conservative Political Action Conference is underway in Orlando, with Republicans taking aim at Democrats.
They want to take away your freedom of speech. They want to take away your religious liberty. They want to take away your right to bear arms. They want to get you fired from your job. They want to get your bank to drop you. They want to make you unemployable in the future.
Florida Senator Rick Scott. Former President Trump is set to make his first public speech since leaving the White House on Sunday at the CPAC event. America is listening to Fox News.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but here you go. You deserve to feel better than you do today. And you can with Headspace. They make meditation simple. Headspace is the one of the only meditation apps advancing the field of mindfulness and meditation through clinically validated research and can reduce stress, improve sleep, boost focus, and increase your overall sense of well-being. Go to headspace.com/Fox for a free 1-month trial. This is the best deal offered right now. Headspace.com/Fox.
New details are coming out about the U.S. airstrike in Syria in what is believed to be President Biden's first military action since taking office.
At least one fighter is reported to have been killed in the airstrikes, which were launched overnight in Syria. A senior U.S. official tells Fox News the attack should be seen as a warning to Iran and the militia groups it supports. The Pentagon says it targeted buildings used by militias in retaliation for recent rocket attacks against American service personnel in Iraq. Russia, which is heavily involved in Syria's civil war, has condemned the strikes. Simon Owen, Fox News.
A nurse charged with sexually assaulting an incapacitated woman who later gave birth at a long-term care facility in Phoenix is asking a judge to throw out DNA evidence that authorities say ties him to the rape. An attorney for Nathan Sutherland said in a court filing this week that the evidence should be tossed because Phoenix police officers didn't get a warrant or have probable cause to take his client's DNA. Golfer Tiger Woods is transferred to another hospital as he recovers from this week's crash.
The 15-time major golf champion is now in another hospital. Woods was transferred from Harbor UCLA Medical Center, 21 miles north, Wednesday night reportedly, to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, quote, for continuing orthopedic care and recovery. Cedars-Sinai has a renowned sports medicine institute known for athletes rehabilitating there from orthopedic injuries. Dr. Anish Mahajan, interim CEO at Harbor UCLA Medical Center, said,
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm.
The Princeton Medical Institute has found that the most common deathbed regret, more than losing contact with family or spending too much time at the office, is never having sprayed a fire extinguisher all over the place.
Similar themes emerged in our interviews with dying patients. Some wished that they'd taken more risks. Others wished that they'd lived a life truer to their dreams. But almost every single person surveyed, regardless of their age or circumstance, said that their most significant regret was never having grabbed a fire extinguisher off a wall and blasted it around a room until it ran out of foam.
I've lived a good life. I was a nurse for 32 years. I have 3 beautiful children, but I've never smashed my elbow into a glass case, grabbed a fire extinguisher, and gone whoosh over everything.
This is the Onion News Network.
Whoops. Well, here we are again. It's always such a pleasure. Hey everyone. Was sick all week last week with I'm pretty sure it was the flu. I'm pretty sure it was the flu just because of all the body aches. I know flu-like symptoms could mean, anything some asshole in a white lab coat wants it to mean, but it just sapped me the energy to do anything last week, and I tried like an hour before the show started. I tried getting the call system set up, and since it's via Discord, and I guess I only have like a dozen people in the QA Discord, and therefore I'm unable to get a fancy URL like via LRN Discord had. So basically I had a scheme where you would have to go to my DLive page and subscribe, and that's how you'd find the Discord link. That's where I apparently posted it. But I'm trying Mumble, right, because I don't think doing the whole audio heavy stuff is good for Jitsi. Ian said last time I played audio just as a test, and we got like distortion, and so I started hearing myself and shit, and no one was available to help me test it, and I don't really feel like talking to anyone anyways. So I guess it's just for the best. And I've I guess good news because I did my first show Friday yesterday. I actually have an agorism business now. It's just started. But it's it's better money than I made when I was wage slaving away. Oh no! Jeez, I'm sorry. I thought that was a spider. No, it was my headphone. Oh my god, the earbud. Oh my god. All right, I'm sorry about that for any of the ear rape. Oh god. Ugh. At least I didn't jump out of my chair and pull the equipment down. That's exactly what I need. I've been Mr. Bean all year essentially, so that's most likely what would have happened. I was, what was it? I remember, and it was caught on camera, but I forget which episode it was, so I'll probably never find it. Where a spider, right in the middle of a show, a spider descends, descends right in front of me, and I freak out. Oh man, actually, no spider. I guess, what's the worst time for spiders is sort of like cold and the flu season. The worst time for cold and flu season, it's always the spring and the fall, because the spring, it's warm enough, and the spiders, I guess for eggs hatch or whatever, and it's warm enough for them to be out and about everywhere again. But, by summer, you either kill the dumb one, or you kill all the ones that are dumb enough to leave for cover. And, from some of my listeners who are avid gardeners, they got very upset when I smashed the spider, because they say that it could have, they're like, oh, you should have put it outside. It would have, it eats, flies and bad bugs. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm going to put it outside when there's fucking snow covering the ground. No. But then in the fall, right, you see a bunch more spiders, all of them trying to come inside the house to protect themselves from the cold. And I remember I was talking to, I think one of the last time I saw Renee, she was complaining about, I think she's living in southern New Hampshire now, and she was complaining about all the spiders there. And it's certainly a lot colder and drier where I'm at here. So luckily, I think the only two spiders we have to deal with, other than, just small, superficial house spiders or daddy long legs, are I think it's wolf spiders and brown recluses, but those were ever really only in the unfinished cellar. But it's a lot wetter in Keene and southern New Hampshire, so I do prefer it up here. Okay, so actually, I was going to complain that it's going to be a slow news slow. It's been a slow news week, slow news month, especially when no video or audio is involved. It's just going to be me, just me talking. Man, I'm turning into stone, right? I'm starting to see all sorts of shit popping up. Luckily, I don't have my pistol on me. Otherwise, I'd have to have Jay Noon come and pick me up. It's not too soon if nothing bad happens. So anyway, that's a joke. I feel like only like one person listening will understand that. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to begin here. And when I saw this headline, it immediately screamed Saturday Show. And so Sununu drops the hammer, orders New Hampshire public schools to reopen classrooms by March 8th. And this is from NH Journal. And I believe NH Journal was the outlet whose reporter, they're the ones who had a reporter at one of the governor, governor home protests. And he got ticketed by the what many are saying is an illegal ordinance. But then since then, they've just been praising Sununu, or maybe they've been framing Sununu in a very positive light. So I mean, I wouldn't say praising, right? They're not like Fox News or Breitbart or Granite Grok or anything, right? Or NH Progressive Alliance. They're not. I mean, I do like them as what they're doing at nhjournal.com, but the headline, I will say in this case, drops the hammer, orders New Hampshire public school. That is sort of, like flowery language there. And I guess it's just because he's a Republican. And I was talking to some other people who are, outside of, the Keene cult, right? Some other free staters in my listener group, the Upper Valley Freedom Cell. And not a listener group, community group, the Upper Valley Freedom Cell on Telegram. And I'm complaining about Sununu and Republicans, or maybe not Republicans, but we're part of a Republican Party, right? They say that he's not totally reviled for all of this unconstitutional COVID tyranny because he signs pretty much whatever the Republican legislature puts out, even if he doesn't personally like it. So he signed decrim. He signed, when they say he signed, it means he didn't veto it. So he didn't present himself as a bigger pain in the ass than he could have been. Same thing with the constitutional carry. And they're trying to take away that. It's horrifying what they're trying to do with guns. And it's just so expensive now, firearms. Like, I regret not buying a pistol. Well, I mean, actually, the only reason why I didn't buy a new sidearm to upgrade instead of my current 120-year-old black powder pistol is because the apartment I lived in didn't allow firearms, and even though they had zero right to search, unless I guess they had like a police warrant or something, I was just always paranoid. I mean, it just didn't sit well with me to be breaking the rules since it's their place. Even though I think like a rule against firearms is just so. I mean, I think it's inappropriate to ask of someone, to not have a firearm. It's like, what sex are going to ask not to have a knife or not to have medical cannabis? It's ridiculous. So speaking of it, eventually we're going to talk about the hashtag seize the hotel movement, right? You've heard rent is theft, but now, charging for board is now rented. Well, actually, it makes sense though. I mean, because hotel is just a landlord that rents by the night, right? So it makes sense that charging for a hotel is theft. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm not joking. This isn't a troll. There's actually, and I saw it trending on Twitter. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Is this the Marriott's new, Marriott or Best Western's new, advertising campaign that hashtag seize the hotel? But no, People's City Council of Los Angeles, they're demanding that hotels be seized and turned over to people. We're going to get to that in much more of a quick jump. Don't go away with your
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 Liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Now that you've found the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM, you may want to help expose others to our great programs. To assist you in doing so, you'll find resources at promote.lrn.fm, including details on how to get a free bumper sticker, quarter-page flyers you can print out and distribute, banners for your website, as well as files that will allow you to make your own custom banners and graphics. Visit promote.lrn.fm and help bring new listeners to the Liberty Radio Network. That's promote.lrn.fm.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Help get LRN.FM into more ears. Visit promote.lrn.fm for a free bumper sticker, flyers, banners, graphics, and more. Promote.lrn.fm.
What's going on, everyone? So I'm going to begin this article here. Sanu drops the hammer, orders